Hello. What day is today? It's a Wednesday. It is April 10th, 2019. And I don't know what I'm going to work on today, but felt like streaming, so I decided to fire this up. Let's see. Usually I do a little recap of what we did last time. Which actually is something that we could continue on today, because I didn't quite finish it. Last time we worked on speeding up PyTest, and most of that was changing from package resources and setup tools to import lib metadata. I worked on this a little bit after the stream, just to make these pull requests and figure out what I needed to do to finish them. For import lib metadata, it's mostly going to be, for Pluggy, it's mostly going to be making the distribution objects look like the old ones, but I didn't get around to finishing that. As you can see, the tests are failing. And for PyTest itself, there were a bunch of tests that were failing. And I removed some features with package resources, but I think given these comments below, I'll probably have to put them back, even though there's such a crazy edge case that I don't think anyone will ever hit them. But that's what we worked on last time. Haven't worked on too much in the way of Python stuff since last stream. Oh, I guess I did work on one thing, so I can explain that. So I added a new feature to PyUpgrade, which is one of my code formatting, syntax rewriting tools. The thing that I added here actually came from a bug in another project. And I couldn't think of a good place to stick this, and so PyUpgrade was kind of the closest, so I put it there. So there's this bug in Modernize, which actually comes directly from lib 2 to 3, where if you have... I guess I'll explain what Modernize is first. Sorry. Frog in my throat, I guess. So what Modernize is a tool to make your code Python 2 and 3 compatible. It's built on lib 2 to 3, but tries to make it also Python 2 compatible at the same time. So let me show an example. Is it Python Modernize or is it just Modernize? I forget. Looks like Modernize. Yeah, so let's make a Python file that does some blatantly Python 2 things. I don't know, a dictionary that uses iter items. So this is blatantly Python 2 code. It doesn't work in Python 3, but if you run Modernize, or at least the idea behind Modernize is you run it on code and it's... I don't remember how it works. Is it -I, -W? I make it in place. -W, yeah, that's what it was. Okay, so it fixed it. So now if I run it in Python 3, it should pass. Assuming that I have 6 installed. Yeah, passes now. So what Modernize did, a couple of things. Oh. Cleverly muted myself there, sorry about that. So some of the things that Modernize did was add from future import print function that kind of forces you to use print with prens. It also fixed the dict.iteritems here to 6.iteritems. Basically to make this fast in both Python 2 and Python 3. I actually don't prefer doing that, so I prefer just doing this. And unless this dictionary is billions of items, it makes very little difference, even in Python 2. But anyway, so that's what Modernize does. But there's this particular bug in Modernize that's really annoying. Hey, what's up, VCat12? Hello, everyone. Yeah, it's all like 3 people right now. Is my chatbot working? Yeah, it is. Cool. So there's this one particular bug in Modernize where if you have a print function, so this is like valid Python 3 code already. But the interesting thing here is, let's see, how do I show this? Pip install AST pretty, I guess. This is Python 3. Let's see. Did I unmute myself? Oh, it's not saying anything. I see. Is the sound working? I don't know. Someone tell me. I assume it's working because OBS says that my sound is working. Sound is working. Okay, cool. I was concerned for a second. What was I doing? Oh, I was showing what this print statement actually is. Can you remind us what you're working on? I don't know yet. I'm still doing recap. You connect your Twitch chatbot and read messages from the terminal. Oh yeah, that's true. Well, I actually also have chat over here, which is how I see it. But yeah, the Twitch bot is something that I made on stream a while ago. Right now, I'm recapping some stuff that I worked on off stream by adding this new feature to PyUpgrade, which is a code formatter, and Python 2, Python 3 upgrading or bridge burning tool. But I'm kind of explaining the bug here. So this in Python 2 is actually the same as this. And really what's happening here is it's print followed by a parenthesized string, which decays to just this code here. But Modernize and lib2to3 for whatever reason doesn't understand this, and so when you run Modernize on this, install it again. Python modernize-wt.py. Oh, it didn't do it that time. Huh. How do I force this to happen? There we go. So Modernize doesn't know any better in some cases and will double up the parentheses here even though they're meaningless, and it works, but it looks ugly. And what the latest version of PyUpgrade will do, install PyUpgrade. What the latest version of PyUpgrade will do is it will remove those redundant parentheses, and that was one tiny thing that I did while offline. Let's see, other recap stuff. Oh, I switched internet providers. That one's a big deal. So I got rid of Comcast and I switched to a provider called Wave. Let me grab my speed test so I can show you what that's about. But I shouldn't be dropping frames now whenever I download anything. I used to drop frames on stream, which is really obnoxious. Let's see, copy link location. Yeah, so here's a speed test that I ran right after I got it installed. So now I have gigabit Ethernet. My upload speed is still kind of low, but I could pay to get that higher, but I don't think I need it. But this should mean that I can now actually function better. And I also had to cancel Comcast, which was quite a mess. Hi, bro. I'm learning with this language, and I don't know what that word is. Oblique. I don't know what word that is. Sorry. Yeah, I upgraded my internet, so now that's better. Oh, you have a problem learning it. Oh, I see. If you want to ask questions, I'll answer them. If you want anything, any advice or anything you're stuck on, I'm happy to help with that. Let's see what else happened. Oh, I was just like a random story that happened over the weekend or over the week. I was biking home on Tuesday, and some guy started following me in his car, and I was pretty terrified. I thought I was gonna die. But I was like 3 miles from my house, and then even though it was like a 2-lane road, he could have just gone around me, and my house is kind of off the main road, so it's like I go a very windy way home to intentionally increase mileage, but this guy just like kept following me, and so I kept going faster and faster. I was like dead tired and like terrified when I finally got home. Fortunately, I was safe, but I was very scared of getting run over by some crazy. Was not great. Oh, I was also very fortunate that I took my bike home today, because apparently the Caltrain, there was a trespasser incident, and so the trains were all held up, and that was a pain. Yeah, okay, that's enough recap. It's been 11 minutes of that, so we can actually move into programming this time. So I think the first thing that I can work on is probably fixing up this pull request. It's almost there, and so we can probably just debug the last failures and fix that. Another thing that, if I get through that I might want to work on is, what was it? Oh, there's this weird Flake 8 issue. Well, it's not weird, like I know why it's happening, but I would like to fix it. This one. So right now, what am I talking about? Right now Flake 8, I think double parses the configuration, and I'd like to stop doing that so that I can move the parsing of this option further into further towards the place where it knows what configuration file it's parsing. But I haven't had time to work on this, so I might work on that if I get the PyTest stuff done. But let's work on that. I already have a clone. Cool. So in theory, if I run the test... Oh, that's not how the tests run. Wait a minute. I Control-C the test and it says succeeded? That seems not right. I guess I'll make a bug report. Although I'm not on the latest version of Tox. Let's see if that still reproduces. It's kind of funny. So I just Control-C'd it right here. Yeah. It's a little bit broken. Bug report. Maybe I'll work on fixing this too. Does it exit non-zero? Yeah, it at least exits non-zero. Bug report. Tox congratulates me even if I Control-C it. How do you know where to make changes in open source code? Ooh, that's a good question. Thank you, Aus23, for following. Every follow counts. So some of it is familiarity with code bases, but learning the code bases is kind of the hard part. In this case, I think I'll be able to find where it comes from, so I'll actually show you how I would triage this. But first, let me make the bug report, and then we'll do that. Make the bug report. Make sure you can reproduce it with RVV. I don't know what RVV is. What is R? Recreate. Yeah, I don't think that's relevant. I control C there? Yeah, there we go. Lots of output. But yeah, I'm not gonna paste this full output. But I will paste... Is this helpful? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Match the output of the bug. Ideally, you should also submit a project that allows easily reproducing the bug. Yeah, we'll see. Where's the part? Here we go. Fortunately, it exits non-zero, so this is more of a cosmetic issue than anything else. But yeah, we'll step through this and see where this is happening and why this thinks it's successful, but really it's not. Tox version. Seems good. Okay, so I happen to work on Tox a little bit, so I kind of know how it's set up, although the other maintainer has been moving stuff around recently. So I'm going to be learning where the code is probably again for the first time. Have you ever mentored someone? If someone wanted to be a mentee, how would you go about asking and overperforming / making it worth the mentor's time? Yeah, I've mentored a lot of people. So I mentored, let's see, like 3 or 4 interns while I was at Yelp. I also mentored like 2 or 3 new hires. This is just like at work and stuff. At Lyft, I've mentored a couple of people. We haven't had any interns, so it's mostly just been new hires and stuff there. But I think the important thing for mentorship from a mentor is that your first priority is not your normal first priority. Your first priority is making sure that your mentee feels like they're important and that they're getting up to speed, and everything else is second to that. Like the person you're mentoring is your highest priority. And I think it's like if your mentorship doesn't go like that at your company, like there's probably a organizational problem maybe. But I think it's, at least at Lyft, it's well understood that if you're mentoring, like that's your number one priority, and like shipping code and doing other stuff is much less important. How'd you go about asking and overperforming / making it worth the mentor's time? I don't quite know what you're asking or how to answer that. But I think mentorship is super useful. It's like there's a saying that says like the most efficient, or the best use of a senior engineer's time is improving all of the junior engineers around them. I want a mentor to swap career path. Do you mean like to learn programming, or like get better at contributing, or what sort of stuff there? What are you looking for? Right now I'm in InfoSec and pen testing, and I want to get more into DevOps and dev in general. Do you have, like, where you work right now, do you have opportunities to work with software engineers? Like, if you get the opportunity just to work with other people, I think that's a good way to get started on trying other stuff. So like when I worked at Yelp, I started as a front-end engineer, and I eventually kind of moved further back in the stack to doing like back-end development and then eventually infrastructure. And a lot of my work, or a lot of my starting work with infrastructure, wasn't really part of my like job description. It was mostly like I got curious about how things worked, and so I went out of my way to try and learn new things that were maybe related to what I was working on, but definitely like not something I would normally get time to work on in my day-to-day. And so like from that I ended up just like kind of self-teaching a lot of stuff and getting further and further there. Yeah, but not directly. It's break things and give reports to them to fix. Oh, I see. You don't really know the devs. Yeah, so some of those might be opportunities for you to like dive into the reports themselves and like maybe like poke at how the code works to get some ideas there. Is Tox open source? Yes, it is. It's on GitHub at github.com/toxdev/tox. It is, so if you want a TLDR of what Tox does, it's a kind of virtual environment and command running management tool. It's kind of like Make. You set up this like tox.ini file, which you specify test environments and their dependencies and what commands you want them to run, and basically works like that. What's up, dissidents? So yeah, let's figure out how I would debug figuring out this keyword interrupt problem. Yeah, let's just Control C it so we get the output right here. So the first thing that I would look for. The first thing that I would look for here is where this got keyboard interrupt signal comes from, because I think that's going to be kind of the useful part to tracing through Tox. And the tool that I use a ton when I'm doing investigation on code repositories is git grep. This is basically just like search all of the checked in files for whatever string. And so if I git grep here, we can see that it's happening inside this file. Got keyboard interrupt. So it looks like the error reporting here is really just writing this string and then re-raising keyboard interrupts. This is some new code. I actually reviewed this code as it went in. This is to make sure that the background process dies in a reasonable amount of time. Because before it was not. In an older version of Tox, if you killed the process and the background process just ignored the keyboard interrupt, it would spin forever. Thank you, dissidents, for the follow. Every follow counts. But yeah, this is kind of a process management thing so that Tox didn't allow runaway processes to happen. But yeah, so this first text wasn't actually the answer to where this keyboard interrupt gets handled. But we know the type of the exception, so I can search around for keyboard interrupt and hopefully find where this eventually gets caught. Looks like a lot of places. If I limit it to the source directory, we can see there. Let's see, this is in evaluate command. Actually, I think there was a stack trace up here when we ran this. Okay, so the call to virtualenv got interrupted, which is fine. Oh, but this isn't actually a stack trace of Tox, so we don't actually see where in the code this happens. So we can actually put a breakpoint there and debug there. I'm looking to make something like Tox, but end-to-end encryption. I'm not sure what you mean. Could you elaborate on that? So what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to put a breakpoint inside of Tox's code, and then we can use the debugger to trace around there. Source Tox. What was the file that we found? Oh, here we go. So we'll set a breakpoint here. Breakpoint is a new built-in in Python 3.7+. But I made a sneaky library called Future Breakpoint, which allows me to use Python 3.6 and use the breakpoint built in directly. But that's why that works despite using Python 3.6 here. Let's see if I can just reproduce it the same way here. See if I continue, does it say success? No. This is using the isolated build, so it's a little bit different. I think if I Control-C here, yeah, so if I Control-C here, this is where it fails, so that's where I want to debug. Okay, so I can use where to look at the current stack tray, so where things are happening. And a lot of the frames in this stack trace are going to be Pluggy, which is the plugin system that both PyTest and Tox use. Let's see. It looks like session.run command is what's getting run here. Let's go up some frames and look at what's going on. So first it goes through testm create, Tox, testm create. Yeah, so this is where it builds the command line to run virtualenv. And it looks like no keyboard interrupt is being caught here. So keyboard interrupt. Oh, there's one down here. Okay, so at the test stage, that's where it's setting the status. So it probably need to set this same status in the virtualenv case, but we'll look at that in a bit. Are there any other status assigns? What is self here? We'll get to the class eventually, right? Was it create? Really, it's creation. Oh no, virtualenv. That's the class here. So if I remember right, Tox has a bunch of these virtualenv objects, and it eventually inspects them at the end. Hey, what's up, Lazy Guru? Thank you for the follow. Every follow counts. So my guess here is if we find where this let's see, Tox testm create. This is inside this update call. So my guess is maybe down from here. Line 677. Okay, so either here or inside pcall, probably here we need to set vm.status, but we'll look at that in a bit. I want to see where the checking to produce this command succeeded output comes from, because clearly that's wrong. So let's quit that and succeeded. Let's get set here. If not status, status equals command succeeded. Okay, so it tries to retrieve the status attribute from the virtual env and otherwise sets undefined. So it's probably just the case that the status never gets set. And so it's probably none. Let's check this. Okay, so if we put a breakpoint here, we should be able to see what the status is, and that'll probably they'll hopefully confirm what I'm suspecting here. VM.status is 0. So it starts as 0 before this call even happens, and when this gets interrupted, where does that bounce to? I think I messed that up. I control C'd while it was in PDB, and so it entered the debugger, which I didn't know was a thing, but now that I know that's a thing, it's kind of useful, but it was not what I wanted here. We can skip the finally. This is just it going up the frames as it catches things. Multi-call. We're in the plugin management code, which isn't super helpful. On line 242. I think it's still raising now. It's not any of these. Yeah, we're still in the exception bubbling phase here. Oh. Then we were done, and I missed it. It looks like this caught it. 220. I missed it. Let's put breakpoints in all of these except keyboard interrupts and see what is catching it. I suspect it's one of these sessions or this one. No, it's probably just this one. Let me make an educated guess. Keyboard interrupt. No, it's probably too late. The breakpoint there anyway, though. Breakpoints. If we look at 222, is that this file? Yeah. Okay, so in this finally block, it runs the summary, even if there's a keyboard interrupt. That makes sense. So yeah, the fix is going to be to set status to interrupted in the virtual env creation. Alright, so let me try and write a test for that first. Unfortunately, it's going to be a terrible monkey patching test, but I don't think I can do any better than that. Fox test env create, which calls vm.pcall. So apparently I need to mock out this function, I guess. Not really a unit test. It's not really an integration test. Although we do test stuff in here, so that's good. Talks, test, and create. And my syntax highlighting is broken because my editor is derpy. I could fix it by putting backslashes in front of all of these, I think, maybe? Yeah, so that makes that work better. But I guess I could do that. And, oops. Indent these so they look less bad, even though it's unrelated. Just so you guys can see better what's going on here. What's up, Xcore? Was that an I or an L? Let's see. Copy it, I can see. My font doesn't tell me. Let's see. Is it an I? It's an L. Okay. Thanks, Xcore L13, for following. Every follow counts. Figured it out. It's going well. KZ is me. I'm working, well, I was originally going to work on something in Pluggy, but I found a bug in Talk, a micro bug in Talk, so I'm working on fixing that right now. And re-indenting a bunch of strings so that my editor displays them better. So the reason that they're misaligned like this is when the tests were originally written, there was no code formatter that ran on this project. But Talks recently, well, I guess not recently anymore, it's been almost a year now. Talks switched to using Black as a code formatter. And Black has strong opinions about lots of things. And I don't necessarily agree with Black, but I'm okay working in projects that use Black because then I don't have to think about formatting. And if it looks ugly, I can blame it on Black. Which I do quite often. I saw Python, I had to file. Thanks, man. Yeah, I hear there's not too many people that do Python on Twitch, which I find kind of odd. Like, it's a pretty popular language, so I kind of expect more people to be doing it. Although, if it's just people re-indenting strings like I'm doing, I don't blame them for not doing Python. But yeah. Are most code formatters / tools and such useful in Python? I don't hear much about them other than this stream. Well, I really love code formatters, so that's probably why you hear about it more here. There are, in my opinion, there's a lot of really useful formatters. So I'll go over the ones that I know about, and they're like mini pros and cons. So the first and foremost is Black. We can't start anywhere else but Black. I mean, I know about Go format, and that's about it. Yeah, so Black's idea is to be the Go format for Python. And it's pretty close, although I think it oversteps its bounds in a couple places. Black is a formatter that has no configuration. Well, it has a little bit of configuration. Like, you can configure the line length, what version you're targeting, and to skip double quote normalization, which I really don't like double quotes, so I'm glad they have this option. But Black enforces a bunch of very specific white space and wrapping rules. Some of them are relevant to PEP8, some of them are not. It will try and refold arguments if they can fit and stuff. Some really long lines it'll reformat like this. It'll convert single quotes to double quotes in strings unless you turn off string normalization, and it fixes empty lines according to PEP8. It will add trailing commas when it thinks it wants to. Unfortunately, the rules for trailing commas are really complicated for Black. Like, I don't like it. I wrote my own trailing comma tool, and my tool just always adds trailing commas, and Black has a bunch of like very strange rules. Like, if it's a single line, don't add a trailing comma. If it's multi-lines, add them. If it's this, nah, I guess it's not that complicated. But anyway, it sometimes doesn't, and so black and my trailing comma tool will fight with each other. But yeah, like, here's the string normalization stuff. I guess it does some integer literal rewriting that I didn't know about. Oh, it has a very strong opinion about operator ordering, which Pep8 has flipped back and forth on this like 3 or 4 times now, which I think is really annoying. I prefer this way, which is what Pep8 says no to now, which fine, whatever. Just don't touch my code. Pep8 suggests putting the operators at the beginning, which maybe makes sense for math, but it also, like, black also does it for Boolean operators and stuff. It also apparently fixes some parentheses. I don't know about that. It does a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, black will format everything. Generally, if you're using black, you don't really need many other code formatters. One thing that it doesn't do is import sorting, which we'll get to next. There's 2 main tools. Well, there's 2 main tools that I know about that I've used that deal with import sorting. So the first is isort, which is by far the more popular one. Isort has a bajillion configuration operation. Oh, they added a pre-commit configuration. Hey, that's cool. So that means that I don't have to maintain my wacky mirror now. I don't know why they did this though, or this. Fix that for them. Mirrors isort. Figure out what options we usually send to isort. Uh-oh. They probably just copy and pasted this. This is wrong. This should have types Python. This should do nothing. That's right. So that's unnecessary. This is apparently necessary for their thing. I didn't know isort did multiprocessing, but I don't know why they set that, but I won't change it because they set that up. But this is important, so it only lends Python files. Update the pre-commit configuration for isort. Hello, pre-commit maintainer here. Actually, we don't need to put that in the commit message. We'll put that in the PR description. Yes, create pull request. So the first is additional dependencies is default. Types Python will limit isort to running on Python code instead of every file in the repository. This is cool. I didn't know that they had added pre-commit configuration, so it's exciting. I will add them to the list of repos that are supported, and then I'll get back to explaining code parameters in a sec. I swear my stream is not just a giant tangent. All repos.yaml. So there's already several isort things. So there's mirrors isort, and then this, which is Control G, which is a tool that makes isort work better in static analysis. But I'll talk about that in a bit when I actually talk about isort. And then someone else has another mirror of isort, which I should probably just remove that one because now it's worded out of the box. Add isort as a supported repository. Create a pull request in case I break the white space or the build's broken or something like that. And Anyway, so what iSort is a import sorting tool. It has a bajillion configuration options and a bunch of different ways that it can sort, and a million options, and like I don't even try to understand all the options, and like getting one that plays nicely with other tools like Black is kind of difficult. And it has a bunch of different ways it can style stuff. It basically allows you to configure exactly what you want, which is good in some cases, but I think it's not a great strategy because it allows, I mean, it adds a place where people can bike shed about stuff and have arguments about stuff that really shouldn't matter. Like, who gives a damn how your imports are sorted? Just as long as they're sorted. iSort also has this one glaring problem, in my opinion, in that, let's see. Let me see if I can demonstrate it. Pip install, let's see. Install iSort, and we have some Python file. So if we have 3 imports, this one is standard library, this one is, let's import something that's not installed. This is a third-party library, and this is a first-party library. This is a pretty standard setup for import sorters to separate those 3 categories. Let's just add some more to make it grouped. What is another one? Another standard library, argparse, sure. So if we run iSort on t.py, what? Did I install ASTPretty? I did. I was unable to demonstrate what I was talking about. So if I run iSort on t.py, it will classify ASTPretty as a first-party module, even though it is definitely a third-party module. And just by installing ASTPretty, iSort will have different opinions about which modules are first or third-party. So what iSort is doing is what's called dynamic analysis. It actually tries to import ASTPretty to see where it should classify it as. And so it doesn't know that it's third party unless it's installed. Which I think is like the biggest problem with iSort, and that's why I wrote a tool to make iSort work better. Seed iSort config. And so what seed iSort config does is it looks at all your Python files and populates this known third-party iSort setting. And so if we pip install seed iSort config, and we run seed iSort config, it will have identified that ASTPretty and 6 are third party. And so now, even though, well, let me delete that file first to show it's broken. So iSort t.py. So this is the default sorting that it would do even though ASTPretty is not uninstalled. Seed iSort config is smarter. It knows to seed that setting. So it knows that these are third party. And now if you run iSort on that file, oops, it will properly sort things. So that's why I made that tool. The tool, or the thing that powers seed iSort config, is what powers my import sorter. Which is called reorder Python imports. There's a pull request. Pull request. Oh, right. Thing that doesn't work. And so reorder Python imports is a reaction to iSort in a couple of ways. The first is there's very little configuration. It basically always does the following things. It'll put import imports before from imports. It will split from imports to their own line. It'll remove duplicate imports, which is kind of cool, and it separates things into 3 sections. So same kind of style as the other tool. one big difference between isort and reorder Python imports is reorder Python imports is extremely timid. So if it ever sees not import code or this little no reorder comment, it'll ignore the rest of the file. This is useful for some things. So like for instance, gevent. In order to use gevent properly, you have to, oh, it's that tab there. Where's the like getting started? Monkey patching, yeah. So in order to work with gevent, this has to be basically the first line of whatever file that uses gevent, and isort will happily reorder this import, and so then your monkey patching won't work at all. But reorder Python imports will notice that as non-import code and just stop in its tracks. You can also force it to not reorder stuff. So for instance, matplotlib has special requirements to, like, I don't know if this is still true. This was true 4 or 5 years ago. You used to have to do this before you imported other library or other parts of matplotlib. I don't know if that's still true, but the example still holds. And reorder Python imports only uses this style for a couple of reasons. The biggest reason is that it avoids merge conflicts in large Python shops. So if you have lots and lots of people working on a single code base, it's really frustrating to not be able to ship code because 2 branches conflicted on imports, which shouldn't even matter. They're just imports. They're not that important code. Important code? Ugh. I didn't mean to make a pun, but I guess it just happened. And so here's an example where like 2 developers would try and add some typing import, and they would enter a merge conflict, but with reorder Python imports, it splits them 1 import per line, and so it's much easier to avoid merge conflicts. There's a couple other benefits to this as well, like if you need to no QA an import, for instance, like if you need to import something just for side effects and you couple it with a bunch of other imports on the same line, it'll actually no QA all of the imports in that line, and so you might end up with lint errors when they don't actually exist. And this allows you to mark 1 import at a time. The other thing is this is compatible with Black out of the box. You don't have to configure it at all. Black will be happy with this import style and won't touch it, which is good. Yeah, there's a couple other things that reorder Python imports also does, just because it happens to deal with imports. One of them is to remove obsolete future imports. So if you pass like py3+, it'll remove all of these future imports. If you pass this, it'll remove all of these imports, etc. And so it knows clever stuff about removing and adding imports. It'll also fix up 6 imports in the latest version. This was something that I did on stream a long time ago. I don't know if that one was before or after I recorded for YouTube. I think that was before I recorded for YouTube, so sorry, this one's not on YouTube. But this is another code formatter. And then, what other code formatters are there? Oh, so there's a popular one called AutoPep8, which is one that I use. And this tries to react to PEP8 errors, or PEP8 warnings, or not errors. And it'll automatically fix PEP8 problems. So like, here's a contrived example where they wrote some really awful code, and AutoPep8 has fixed it. There's some cases here where like, this is not how I would write it. Like, I don't really like this style of braces, but we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, it fixes PEP8 problems. There's also AutoFlake, which I haven't used. Well, I guess I've used it once or twice, but I don't use it frequently. But AutoFlake will remove unused imports and unused assignments in response to PyFlakes. It's pretty good. There's some cases that it doesn't understand right now, like imports that span multiple lines or complicated assignments. It won't understand them, but it works pretty well. So that's that. Then there's Google's Python formatter. Google, yeah. And so YAP is yet another Python formatter because we need more of them. But it tries to do stuff similar to AutoPep8. I guess also similar to Black. It's very opinionated. Looks nice, I guess. And it has lots and lots of options. Which, whatever. Options are a thing, I guess. Why does YAP destroy my awesome formatting? Yeah. Same feel that I have about Black. So those are those formatters. I've also written a couple of code formatters. The first one I already showed you, which is the import reorder. There's also PyUpgrade, which I've talked about a little bit earlier, but I'll talk about it again. PyUpgrade is a way to kind of upgrade your source to newer versions of syntax. Some of the stuff it does is convert from Python 2.6 set literals to Python 2.7 ones. Same with dictionary comprehensions, a bunch of other stuff. It's also a way that you can burn bridges with old code. One thing that it will do is automatically make F strings, which everyone loves from Python 3.6. Does a bunch of other stuff, but it's mostly meant to be a like Python version based code formatter. And that's that. This is probably the one that I've spent the code format that I've spent the most time on, with like almost quarter K commits on it. What other code formatters have I written? Oh yeah, add trailing comma. So this tries to do the stuff that Black does, but a lot more timidly. And again, the idea behind trailing commas in Python is to avoid merge conflicts and changes of blame and arbitrary 15 space indents, because I don't know about you, but manually indenting functions to line up with this Princey is really annoying, and I really don't like doing it. But here's kind of the demonstration about get blame. So if you don't have trailing commas, you would modify both of the arguments in this function call just to add a new argument. But with trailing commas, you preserve the blame of this argument, and in theory, if somebody changes this, you won't necessarily have a conflict by changing this argument. And so add trailing comma kind of forces this comma to always be there. There's a couple cases where it can't do that. So Python 3.5 was the first version where you could have trailing commas with star arguments. And Python 3.6 was the first version you could have trailing commas in function definitions with star arguments. That's oddly specific, but this was the first version. But add trailing comma will also add commas in every place where it's possible. Another thing that it does is it unhugs this trailing parentheses so that it can add a trailing comma. And it will also unhug the leading parenthesis to avoid this arbitrary indentation. So it'll perform this rewrite. It'll also match the opening and closing brace for indentation, so you don't have this like weird vertical line here. But that's that. There's probably a bunch of other code formatters, but I think that covers most of the ones that I deal with. I guess technically I have another one. What is it called? YesQA. So this is the opposite of NoQA. It's called YesQA. Stupid pun. But the idea behind YesQA is it will automatically remove NoQA comments that aren't doing anything. NoQA is a way to turn off lints for Flake8. But anyway, code formatters. I could talk about code formatters for hours, but that's just kind of a crash course on them. Ready? Did someone merge it? No? Oh, it's just green. See? And their code coverage thing commented on it. But I can merge this because in theory it works. Yeah, cool. And the thing that, in my mind, brings all of these things together is a tool that I've written called Precommit. which is a framework, a linter runner framework that happens to also know things about Git hooks and different programming languages. And so pre-commit allows you to kind of collect all of these linters in a small configuration file that looks something like this and run them against your checked in code. And so that's that. Okay. Peel back a few stack layers. Hopefully that answers your question. Or I spent like 30 minutes talking about it. But yeah, let me finish fixing up these quota strings here. Then we'll write a test for this weird talks edge case, and then we'll fix it. Gotta make these look nice first, though. I guess I could jump ahead to the next one and then do this faster. Oh no, this one didn't get fixed. Why not? Where did it start being broken? Oh, maybe my editor just hadn't refreshed yet. That's the problem with jumping ahead, I guess. Okay, cool. We wrapped all the way around. Okay, so we want to test create, but with the keyboard interrupt instead. I'm basically just going to follow the same thing that happened up here. We'll copy paste, see what's up there. What just happened? Oh, there's two functions called test create. Test create keyboard interrupt. Probably capitalize that like the exception. Colon. So this is where we want to mock the VM, the pcall function to raise the keyboard interrupt. VM pcall side effect equals keyboard interrupt, and we should expect it to raise a keyboard interrupt. And we should assert that vm.status equals, what is it? Oh, it's the wrong tab. We should expect it to be this keyboard interrupt string. We don't need the rest of this test. So in theory, this test should fail right now. I think that'll run just the one test. Find out in a second. Yeah. PyTest, all of that garbage, and then positional arguments. Doing. Oh, it's running xdist. It's trying to distribute one test across 4 workers. Oh, my VM is frozen. What is going on? That's weird. 1 failed, 5 warnings. The warnings. Pathlib 2. Great. Mock is not defined. Yeah, that would do it. Do we use mock anywhere else? Trying to figure out what the test dependencies are. We installed PyTest mock. Okay, so that installs the mocker fixture, so I need to use mocker instead. Mocker. I think that's how that works. How do we turn off Xdist? -n. -n1. Hopefully that'll turn it off. Find out. Well, it still started one worker. We do expect a test failure, but we expect not this test failure. Vm equals mock session.getVm. When does it get set to 0? In setup VM. Oh, so maybe I should call setup VM? Is that how this works? Yeah, we'll do that, because that more accurately represents what's going on here. VM dot setup VM. I don't think we need this at all. Hey, I'm new to Ubuntu. Can I add any Git repository to apt-get? So the way apt packages work on Ubuntu is you install what's called PPAs, which are called personal package archives. And some of them are managed in Git, but usually the way you add them is with the add apt repository command. And so, for example, one PPA that I maintain is a PPA called Dead Snakes. And Dead Snakes is a PPA that backports and forward ports versions of Python. And so at some point I ran add apt repository PPA Dead Snakes, or well, it was sudo add apt repository. And what that ended up doing is added a source entry for Dead Snakes. You can see I have a couple other ones down here, like one of them is so I can install VS Code, another one is so I can install Docker, one of them is to install Node, and this is the one for Dead Snakes. And this basically just tells apt when you run apt update, look at this URL as well to download packages. I want to install a lower version of CMake. Ooh. Let's see, is there a CMake PPA? 1.2.18.04. Usually installing older stuff is harder. Yeah, it looks like they just have newer versions here. So one other option that you can use to install older versions of stuff or work with older versions of packages is to use Docker. It's a little heavy-handed for probably something like this, but like if you wanted, for instance, the version from Xenial, you could run Xenial and apt update and grab the sources there. See if this finishes. See, the cool thing is I used to run apt update and I would drop frames on my stream. I'm so happy with my new internet connection, so I can actually do stuff that triggers downloads without complaining about the frames. Yeah, Docker lets you run other Linux user spaces in a container, so you can kind of play around with stuff or build stuff with different versions of code, and basically gives you a way to compartmentalize execution. I actually use it a lot to build packages that target other operating systems, because I don't like switching between virtual machines is kind of a lot of work, and Docker kind of gives me a lightweight way to do that. It's still taking forever though, but That's probably Ubuntu's fault and not mine, because I'm definitely not saturating my network right now. But app cache show cmake. Oh, there's no less. Right. Yeah, so like if I wanted the version of CMake from Xenial, I could install this one, which is, what version is it? Version 3.5, which is different than the one that shows CMake less version. Yeah, so the version in Bionic is 3.10, for instance. But yeah, that might give you another way to do something like that. The other thing you can do is build CMake from source. I don't know if I want to do that. I have an issue with something bigger than 3.10. Okay, so then you would probably use some PPA to get backports. CMake backports Ubuntu Bionic. The sketchy thing about PPAs though is you never know how quality their packages are, so sometimes you'll want to like validate these and make sure that they're good. But like this one might work. It would give you the CMake 3.13.4, which is probably pretty new, 6 weeks ago. So that might be an option for you. But yeah. That's kind of how apt and user space packaging works with Ubuntu. Right. Let me go back to this test. So we're gonna call setupenv instead of the hook directly, just so that we trigger the exact same code flow that would happen during a normal test run. We don't actually care about these things. Does this get used at all? No. Get rid of that as well. Okay, so this should reproduce our test now. Hopefully. It should fail and fail for the right reason. Let's hope. What do we get here? We got a failure? That's good. Virtualenv object has no setup venv. Oh, it's setupenv. Darn typos. Sorry, so responding to someone from work. Okay, cool. This is what I wanted. So it says that the status is 0, but I expect it to be keyboard interrupt. So now we can work on fixing this test. And so if we go to the pcall argument, the basic fix here is just going to be this. Accept keyboard interrupt. And we can assign that status to be this same string here. And then re-raise the exception. That should fix our test. And hopefully not break any other tests. The test wait's kind of slow, so I'm probably not going to run through the whole thing, but be able to see this one test. Cool. And it passes now. So that fixes that tiny microbug. Let me undo all the other stuff that I did in here. Which is really just removing breakpoints from these two files. This one. Okay, so to summarize the changes, In the keyboard interrupt case, we set the status where it wasn't getting set before, and fixed a bunch of string literals, and added a test for that case. Lots and lots of string literal fixing. And the other thing to do with talks is there's supposed to be a change log. Word interrupt while creating docs change log. I always forget how to do this. Number.bugfix.rst. Although our issue is not 571, it's 1257. Thanks, congratulations. When Control-Cing a virtual during creation. Supposed to like put my name at the end of it? Yeah. I'm not passionate technical writer though. I am Ace Tilly. Cool. So that was a hour-long tangent. And here's pre-commit running. And in this case, Black also running and reformatting code because it didn't like how I wrote it. But the cool thing about pre-commit is it knows to stop my commit because there are things to not get involved in, or not get involved with there. And so the thing it did here was change my single quotes to double quotes, which, like, fine. This project uses double quotes. I'm not going to argue with it. But validated that the change was fine, and then committed again. And I'll go make a pull request for this. And then I'll answer your question, Dissonance. Since I have this created. Thank you for your contributing. Yes, you will. They wrote a descriptive pull request text, not yet, but whatever. Add a test, yes. Docs, not relevant. I need to use this still. I added a news fragment. I am already in the contributors because I'm a maintainer. 1257. So the cool thing about GitHub is if you put this special text, either resolves 1257 or fixes 1257, when this branch gets merged, it will automatically close this issue. Why is this formatted weird? I think this is formatted right. Drugs. I fixed all these strings. Looks silly, but whatever. Hopefully he's okay with that. This is the other really active maintainer, and Oliver is one of the other maintainers. Not the original authors of talks, but we three hold down the fort for the most part. Thinking of holding down the fort, I should look at the other issues. Raise condition while creating the log. A module named zlib. Looks like a sloppily compiled Python if it's having trouble with zlib. Reformat their code because it's all over the place. But running talks failed with the following error. Crazy Town. What's going on here? Oh, they formatted this log correctly, but not the other one. There, it's a little more readable. What happened here? Well, they're running as root, so that seems a little sketch. Anyway, I don't know how to reproduce this one, but I fixed the formatting at least. Oh, the music pause. Oh yeah, it's been an hour and almost a half. So. I'm the way I do music is there's this copyright-free stream that I play in the background, which is in the description, but it's just a YouTube video, so YouTube will cut me off if I don't interact with the window every so often. Okay, let me answer your question now. How many projects are you an active supporter of? Let's see. It's probably I'll start with the big ones that you've probably heard of, and then not necessarily count all of my personal projects. But the biggest ones that you've heard of are PyTest, which is a Python testing library. I'm one of let's see, there's 5 active maintainers of PyTest right now. I'm one of those 5. I'm not in the top 5 contributors yet, but I'm one of the active maintainers. So this is the original author. Bruno and Ronnie and Daniel and who else is common? Person works on it a bit, but kind of falls off from there. But yeah, I'm up there in the most recent contributions, and also I spend a lot more time reviewing code than writing code in PyTest as of recently, because I've been a lot more busy. But so PyTest is one of them. Talks, which we just talked about, which kind of goes hand in hand with Talks. I was added to Talks before I was added to PyTest, and then since there's a lot of overlap between the two projects, I ended up working on both of them. But I work on Talks, which is virtualenv automation and stuff for Python. I also maintain Flake 8, or I'm one of the maintainers of Flake 8. There wasn't a release for a year, and the other maintainer got quite burned out on open source, which I don't blame him, because he works on all sorts of crazy stuff. And I offered to take up the reins and have been managing the project and merging and making fixes and that sort of thing since then. So I started at the 3.6 release, and so I made 3.6 and 3.7, 1 through 7, or 0 through 7 releases. And I continue to fix stuff with Flake 8. Flake 8 is a framework for linters for Python. Out of the box, it works with PyFlakes and PEP8 and a tool called McCabe, although McCabe is off by default. And it basically does some style checks and some correctness checks, or at least Flake 8 doesn't, but the tools that it wraps. So for instance, PyFlakes is one of the tools that it wraps, and it does a lot of linting there. I'm not actually a maintainer of PyFlakes, but I do contribute a lot to it. So if we look at contributions, I'm in the top 5 here. Granted, it's only with 16 commits, but pretty significant chunk of code. And actually not that far off from the other people that maintain PyFlakes. I've also contributed a bit to PyCodeStyle, which is the other component of Flake 8. Hey, what's up, Kane1832? Thank you for following. Every follow counts. I also contribute a bit to PyCodeStyle, not as much as PyFlakes, because I understand this one a little bit less, but I'm top 10, not bad. But I'm also not a maintainer here either. This is the other Flake8 maintainer. Mr. Ian was currently taking a break from open source software indefinitely, which is well deserved for him. What other projects on GitHub am I a member of? Let me look at my profile. Or at least other ones that you would have heard of. So I talked about Dead Snakes, which is also on GitHub, which is Ubuntu, or backports of Python for Ubuntu. So I manage all these different versions of Python with Felix. This was another situation where the original maintainer was like, well, I don't use this, so I don't have a reason to maintain it. And I was like, oh, well, I do. I'll maintain it. So he taught me some stuff. I learned a lot about Debian packaging, which I used to know nothing about, but now I'd say I'm pretty good. Oh my god, 42 people. This is gonna be crazy town. What's up, Dourite? Thank you for the raid. This is gonna be the most number of viewers I've had at any point in a really long time, but hello friends. I'm right now I'm going through projects that I maintain, which is not super interesting, but I've rated you before, so you had to get me back. Yeah, that's fair. Although when I rated you, it was like 10 people, so a little bit not quite tipping the scales. But thank you again for the raid, though. I was just talking about Dead Snakes, which is a backport of a bunch of Python versions. A raid's a raid, yeah. But yeah, his stream's pretty cool. So if you get the chance, check him out. Also works with Python, so might find their stuff interesting as well. But yeah, so Dead Snakes is another thing that I maintain. The biggest thing, or at least my baby of a project, is Precommit, which I've talked a little bit about. Thank you, Tim Robin Drake 01 for following. Every follow counts. And Precommit, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but Precommit is a framework for running code formatters and code linters in a bunch of different programming languages. So the original idea was like installing tools to lint code is kind of annoying, especially if you work in a code base that has a bunch of different programming languages. So for instance, at Yelp, the main code base is a Python application, but it also has CSS for displaying styles on the website, and it also had JavaScript for having interactive components. And so installing tools that lint CSS and JavaScript weren't always written in Python, especially for JavaScript. Like, I don't know why you would ever write a JavaScript linter in Python. Most JavaScript linters are, surprise, surprise, written in JavaScript. Thank you, Riris, for following. Every follow counts. Hopefully I pronounced your name close to right. Sorry if I didn't. But yeah, so what Precommit does is it manages the installation of all the tools in different programming languages. Part of the reason that it manages the installation itself is sysadmins are often grumpy when you're like, hey, install this random Ruby package to the system. And no one wants Ruby packages installed randomly to their system, and so what Precommit does is it installs all the stuff in user space. It also makes it easier for you to not really care about how they get installed, and so it'll just set those up for you. And then it integrates with Git hooks, so it knows things about Git lifecycles to make that step of things easier. But this is the project that I spend the most of my time on, and tools that are associated with it. Hey, Shaky Bones, thank you for following. Every follow counts. But yeah, so some of the tools that Precommit integrates with, I also work on, which is actually probably why I enjoy working on things like Flake8 and stuff, because I really like code linters and stuff. But yeah, this is kind of some output of what what Precommit used to look like. I happen to know it no longer looks like this. Like there's not this many dots anymore, but it manages to couple together a bunch of different linters for checking code and stuff. Hey, what's up, Mindful Fox? Hi, Anthony, and 34 bots. Yeah, I just got raided. That's why there's so many people here. Hopefully they're not all bots. How's your Wednesday going? Just talking through stuff that I maintain right now.
Almost done with that. But yeah, pre-commit allows you to bring together a bunch of different linters, and so here's one command of committing something where it ran a Python linter, it ran a basic white space fixer, some like test validation, CSS or SCSS linter, a meta linter. That one's not super important. Also one that checks Ruby and one that checks JavaScript. All of that ran in one command without me having to manage any of the installations. Did you talk about pre-commit? Yeah, kind of talking about it right now, but yeah, can't forget pre-commit. Pre-commit's my baby. But yeah, so pre-commit is this project, which has I just got to 2,800 stars. Not that stars are necessarily a measure of impact or whatever, but it's another number. The big number that I usually look at to see like how often pre-commit is getting used is to look at the traffic for the built-in hooks repository, and this shows how often this repo gets cloned. And it's a little bit down from last week. Last week it was like 53,000 clones per week. Hey, what's up, Amir Saw? Thank you for following. Every follow counts. But this graph is pretty interesting because it kind of shows like people are more often using pre-commit during the work week and not so much on weekends, which is kind of to be expected. Like, weekends are when you don't write code, and I think what this kind of shows is a lot of people are using this as a tool at work. The other thing that I also think is interesting is I can get lots of like random refers here. Sometimes you see like which companies are using it, so it looks like Capital One is using pre-commit, which is kind of cool. Like, who would have thought that Capital One is using pre-commit? But we can usually see more on the actual project itself. Sometimes you get like random people's Jiras and like no interesting ones this time. But anyway, I like to look through these pages. This one's not as interesting, although even this is like half of, or like 5,000 a 2-week period is pretty big. Hey, what's up, Money Montano? Thank you for following. Every follow counts. I'm actually really surprised how high this clone count is, because cloning this repo isn't super useful unless you're working on it, I guess. I guess it does have the very first framework book that was ever written, which is a meta linter that validates the the pre-commit configuration itself. But yeah, like this was the very first hook that was written just to kind of prove that the framework worked, and then after that, the pre-commit hooks repo was written next. But I actually maintain a bunch of different hooks for pre-commit itself. There's this supported hooks page which lists all of the, well, not all of them, but many of the repos that have a pre-commit configuration that are supported, including the ones that are provided by the pre-commit organization itself. But where's the Acetility ones? Yeah, so here's a bunch of pre-commit hooks that I've written. But some of them are code formatters, so like these first 4 are code formatters. This, I guess, is a code formatter too. And some of these other ones are linters, so like dead is a really stupid dead code detection tool that I wrote on an airplane. Not very good, but it works pretty well. I was able to find a bunch of dead code using dead, which was I don't know, good. It worked. It's I don't know, it's functional. My favorite, I think the entire reason that I wanted to make this project is so I could make this really terrible pun. Because there's this thing that just like grinds my gears about GitHub, and that people will show up on a GitHub project that is stable, like mostly works, and they'll make a GitHub issue that's like, is this project dead? I haven't seen a commit in 6 days. And it's like, ugh. Really grinds my gears. Hey, what's up, dissidents? Yeah, no big deal. But yeah, so I wanted to make this joke, like, is this project dead? Well, maybe it is. But anyway, another linter that I've written. But there's a ton of different plugins that people have written for the pre-commit framework, which is great. Like it's really awesome when the community makes new tools that plug into the framework, because it makes it way easier to use it for other stuff. It's like even like big projects like Ansible Lint have integrated with pre-commit. It's really easy to use pre-commit with Ansible, which is cool. But yeah, there's all sorts of different linters and formatters that support pre-commit out of the box, including Black, which I talk about a bunch. All these other ones. But anyway, I'll let you guys check out this page. I'm not going to scroll through everything here. But yeah, that's pre-commit and most of the stuff that I maintain on GitHub. I also have a bunch of other projects on my own personal GitHub, which I guess I can scroll through some of them. But most of them are severely dwarfed in comparison to those larger projects that I listed before. That's not what I wanted. Source? Yeah, so I have like 100 source repos. Oh, this includes private repos, so some of them are not real. Oh, this repo is funny. I was tired of like writing down recipes on pieces of paper and then losing the piece of paper. So I have a GitHub repo that holds my food recipes. I also just added a recipe recently for making chewy oatmeal chip cookies, which is really good. I made these this weekend. They were great. I went to a party and everyone at the party was like, "Your cookies are so good!" And I was like, "Oh, well, thank you." I didn't know whether they'd be good or not because this was kind of a new recipe that I was trying out, but turned out good. Yeah, anyway, I put them on GitHub. There was a time where this was my like third most starred project, which was a little bit sad because it showed up on my GitHub profile. Oh, this is another project that I spend a bunch of time on. This is kind of a tool that you'll see me use on stream occasionally when I'm looking for code that I know I've written before, but I can't remember what project it's in. So like for instance, let's say I was looking for I don't know, a C file that I had written before. So I can search for all projects that I contribute to or that I have contribute access to that have C files in them. So you can see like apparently a bunch of Yelp projects have C files. What? Why does this have a C file? Oh, wait, this is not matching correctly. I need a $sign. That's how I regex. Okay, so yeah, here's the files that or the repos that I contribute to that have C files in them. For instance. But this reminded me of another project that I maintain that I totally forgot about. This one also grew out of necessity. But then I ended up maintaining because the maintainer was lagging a bit. So this is libsass Python, which is the Python bindings for the SCSS or Sass compiler. Oops, I don't want to edit that. The Sass compiler for I don't know, front-end styling. And libsass is the C++ library that makes this whole thing tick, and then I updated and maintained the Python bindings for that, which is pretty cool. This I started maintaining while I was at Yelp. Yelp was using a library called PySCSS, I think. Yeah, this one. So Yelp was using this library, and it was incredibly slow. It was like, I think we spent like 7 minutes of our build time just running this tool. Because it's pure Python, so it's not really intended to be fast. Like Python isn't exactly a fast language. The other thing that we found was this library had all sorts of bugs, and I wonder if there's still, yeah, like a bug I opened in 2015 is still broken, which oh well, I don't use it anymore, so it's not a problem for me. But I did some initial investigation and noticed that libsass was able to
compile CSS way faster. And then I looked for Python bindings for it because we had some like custom functions that needed to work in SassLand from Python code, which is one of the like big benefits of PySCSS is you could inject Python code into your CSS, which is crazy. It sounds crazy, but it was really convenient. But yeah, one of my first contributions, I guess I'm not going to be able to find that from there. But one of my first contributions was adding custom function support to this project. Let's see. Yeah, so first I upgraded the backing library from 2.x to 3.x, which was a big leap. It actually involved mostly rewriting everything, which was fine, I guess. But then I added custom functions, which was the big thing that Yelp needed to only Yelp needed to do stuff. Oh, this was also my first time that I wrote CPython. Huh. Interesting. I now write CPython pretty regularly, but this was my very first attempt at writing some CPython code. So this was me learning all of the C API of Python, which it's pretty complicated, and in my opinion, it's a little under-documented. But yeah, I wrote a bunch of C code to make this happen, but then I like slowly was like contributed more and more stuff, and then eventually got maintainership on the project, and the rest is kind of history there. Maybe fix Windows. Yeah, this was pretty cool. This is one of those cases where like if you contribute stuff to people's projects and like regularly make positive contributions, they'll often add you as maintainers, and that's how I ended up maintaining here. Oh, I missed a bunch of comments. Let me read back in chat. Just to get back to when you asked about the end-to-end talks project, I wanted that to be a starting point and afterwards make a peer-to-peer network for gray hats. End-to-end means you share the encryption via memory stick. Okay, makes sense. That'd be cool. You could probably do that as just a plugin even. Dude, you're a legend. Well, maybe. How long did it take me to write this? So this was like 1,000 lines of code. Let's see. Look at the commit history. See, I don't actually know. I'd have to look back through Jira on Yelp. Oh, actually, maybe I made an issue about it. Oh, actually, no. We can know based on when I made the first commit. Oh, maybe. Oh, this was merged on January 31st. Okay. Okay, so it looks like I started on January 30th and finished it on February 3rd. How many days are in January? 31? So only 5 days. I'm sure I must have taken more time than that, but somewhere around 5 days. Did you contribute to any of Yelp's PyZipkin or any Jaeger-based projects? Running into some issues using them recently. I think I've made like 1 or 2 one-line commits to PyZipkin. But I don't actually know what Jaeger-based, what Jaeger? Jaeger? I don't know what that means. Let's see. Am I in the contributors? Probably. Oh, surprisingly not. Maybe I only contributed to it when it was closed source. I think they rebased the history at some point. Let's see. They're all familiar names, though. Hey, what's up, Frosty Zam? Thanks for following. Every follow counts. Let's see. Is this when it was closed source? No, this is still open source. It still has check marks here. But if I remember right, they just squashed the whole history in the very first commit. Initial commit. Yeah, this just added all the files. including pre-commit way back then. This was in the zero version era of pre-commit. It actually hasn't changed much since then. Like, this configuration would probably still run, maybe, but yeah. So there's a bunch of code here that I did contribute to, but you can't tell that I contributed to it because it was when it was closed source. Oh, Jaeger is Uber's open source tracing library. It's a replacement for Zipkin. Yeah, I haven't worked with Jaeger. At work, or at Lyft, we use, oh, what is it called? Lightstep? Yeah, we use Lightstep, which is third-party service that you pay them money, and they do tracing, which I've contributed to their client, I think, Lightstep Python. Thank you, Lamouchi, for following. Every follow counts. Yeah, I think I've contributed to this. This was just like some tiny bug fix that was annoying. New line change. Woohoo! Oh yeah, they were equals-equalsing thrift, which was breaking our code, and so I fixed some like version conflict stuff here. It's not a big deal. But yeah, I haven't worked with Zipkin in a long time, and I've never worked with Jaeger, and only briefly worked with Lightstep. Just a quick question, is it worth it to learn Python now? I'm taking a vacation for a whole month and thinking of learning it. Is that enough time? Is it worth it? It depends. Well, so the first question is like, can you learn Python in a month? I would say it depends. I think you can learn enough to be sufficient at Python, like enough to like write some code and like work on some projects and stuff. I don't think like a month is enough to be an expert at it, and I don't even think like I'm really good at Python, but I don't think I'm a complete expert at everything in Python, and I've been doing it for what, almost 7 years now. But yeah, I think you can learn enough Python to be really like pretty good at it in a month. And if you know other programming languages, I think you can learn it even quicker that way. Thank you, Davy Wellesley Z, for following. Every follow counts. And the other question is it worth learning? It really depends on what you want to get out of it. Like if you're looking to do like data science and stuff, like Python is pretty much, I think, the best way to do data sciencey stuff nowadays. Then again, I don't work with data science, so I don't actually know that part of the community all that well, and like what tools and stuff are necessary or useful there. But if you're looking to build like command line tools, Python's pretty good. If you're looking to learn a language that's pretty forgiving and generally like easy to learn, Python fits that bill pretty well. It's a good multi-purpose language, so like if you want just like a quick web framework, like there's a billion of them for Python. They're mostly pretty good. I don't know, I think it's worth learning. It really depends on like what you already know and how you're going to be able to like learn more with that, and whether knowing Python is going to elevate you to the next level for like building stuff. Hopefully that was an alright answer. I don't know, kind of all over the place, but hopefully that kind of answers what you're asking. Right. Yeah, so let's see. What else were we talking about? What was I working on? I don't even remember at this point. I talked about libsass. Yeah, no problem. Happy to answer. Thank you, Zanzanz. Zanzanz. It's a cool name. Thank you for following. Every follow counts. Cool name. Right. Oh yeah, we were talking about things I maintain. So like all repos is another tool for. The idea behind all repos is you clone everything and then you can apply sweeping changes to it. So some examples of things that I've done with sweeping changes where I just edit all my repos at once is like replacing, I don't
know, like CI configuration and stuff. Is it true that Yelp calls restaurants and asks for money? So that's kind of a weird way to put it. So Yelp, the way Yelp makes money as a platform is it sells, excuse me, Yelp sells advertising. So let me show you some examples of some Yelp ads. I gotta turn off the ad block first. Yelp.com/search. And so let's say that I want to search for, I don't know, sushi in San Mateo, which is where I live. Oh, they've gotten really sneaky. This is so sneaky. So you would think, like, I just searched, cool. These are the search results. These are actually ads, believe it or not. Even though they look identical to the search results down here, this is where the actual results are. Yeah, this page has changed so much since I worked there. I'm really glad they're starting to accentuate the photos here. Like, this part photos look really good. And they've finally, so there used to be this, like, every product at Yelp would have a color, and the, like, orders and delivery was on a service that internally we called it Platform. And Platform had this, like, hideous yellow color that was its, like, accentuation color for all the buttons. And so this start order button used to be this hideous yellow. I'm glad they kind of moved to their standard buttons. Although these are buttons secondary. I've changed this since last. Oh, this is the new React rendering. So I don't even tell you the. Here's the name of the class. Fill the button. This is where the button stops. Arrange unit. I guess they just do with border color now. Huh. Interesting. This is the new, like, React rendered search page. It used to be a, oh look, it was rendered with Hypernova, which is the server-side rendering React thing. But anyway, this is different buttons than when I used to work there. But yeah, the way Yelp makes money is by ads, and the way Yelp gets advertising businesses is to call them and ask them to sign up for ads, and call them to have them pay money. So yes, it is true that Yelp calls restaurants and asks them for money. And actually, like, most of the employees at Yelp are cold call salesmen or sales people. They're not men. They're not all men. In fact, I think most of them are women. But yeah, they call people and ask for money. Does GitHub show full user information like the real life name? Yes and no. It depends, like, what you set up on GitHub. I've set mine up so it shows my full name, but you can configure it so it doesn't. If my user page ever loads, I think I had it open somewhere before. But, like, I set it up to show my full name, but I think you can, your profile, you can change it so it doesn't display that. That's not what I wanted. I wanted settings. Yeah, so you can just change this to be whatever you want here. It doesn't have to be your full name. You can also have it not display your email address. Huh, weird, I still have my Yelp email in there. Oh, that's my personal email. Don't send me personal email, please. Oh well. Out there for the world now. It's gonna be on YouTube also, because I'm not gonna bother editing this, because editing is too much work. The other thing that, if you want to, like, hide your identity on GitHub, that you have to be careful about is when you make Git commits. By default, they're gonna include your full name and email address, so you can hide that and change your GitHub configuration. But for instance, like this PR by me, it doesn't necessarily say my name here, but if you go to the diff view, you can see the patch that got created, and the patch includes the Git committer information. So you'll want to configure Git to not put your name here. If you're concerned about your name. I don't care about my name, so I'm okay putting it out there. In fact, like, that's why my Twitter account has my name, like my stream. Does my stream have my name? I guess it doesn't. I don't think I ever filled out the user information. Maybe I should do that. Oh well. Oh, and in case you guys are wondering why I always look to the left, I have another screen over here which has like my stream dashboards and stuff. That's why I always look left whenever I get a subscription. Oh yeah, I fixed my commits, but I'm trying to figure out the GitHub culture accepts that people hide their full name. Yeah, a lot of people do. I choose not to, but I know a lot of people that set arbitrary names on GitHub. Like, I wonder if MXR hides his. Probably not. Oh, his profile takes forever to load too. Yeah, so he hides his full name, so he just puts Max R. I know his full name though, because I work with him at Lyft. But yeah, it's okay to hide your name. Privacy is your right. Like, exercise it, man. But yeah. Can't believe it still says Mo Map. Oh, this is what the buttons used to look like. The more standard buttons are these red buttons. I guess these are the secondary buttons. I don't know. Well, that's kind of jank. It like animates nicely out, but then it like snaps into place here. Weird. Anyway, this used to my mentor at Yelp when I first joined built this feature here that makes this map get bigger and larger, and this animation around this little arrow that switches around. But anyway, it's kind of like a silly feature, and I think it's really surprising that this this copy made it through all that time. But anyway, that's how Yelp makes money. There's a couple other things that Yelp does to make money that are also related to calling businesses. Wow, that took forever to load. One of the other products that Yelp has is a reservations product, where basically it's a competitor to OpenTable. I think it used to be called SeatMe. I think it's now called Yelp Reservations. They acquired a company. But Yelp also calls businesses to have them sign up for reservations and such. There's also a food ordering platform where Yelp partners with a bunch of different companies that can provide food ordering through the Yelp app or the Yelp websites. That's another way Yelp makes money. How else? Probably a couple other products, but I haven't worked there in a while, so I don't hear about them all the time, so I don't think about them all the time. It's fine with me. I like how the number one result is this $4 place. I think I tried to go here once, and you have to make a reservation like, oh yeah, it's like right up the street from me. You have to make a reservation like forever in advance. Walk-ins are not accepted. Yeah, very much true. Is it a vegetarian-friendly restaurant? Only if you consider fish a vegetable. Great. Oh. People are spicy on Yelp. But yeah, I tried to like go to this place, but you have to book it like months in advance. When did Yelp sell E24? Oh, I remember that. It was great because the stock price skyrocketed when Yelp sold E24, and that was right before I sold my stocks. It was in 2017, 2018? E24. Oh, that doesn't work in... Why does it just redirect to GrabHub? E24. Yeah, August of 2017. Which actually, like, this was kind of a both good and bad move for Yelp. I think it was a good move because Yelp bought E24 for way less than they sold it for. So that was great. And I think that's why the investors were so excited about the selling of E24, because it made the stock price go up. E24 was always, in my mind, a liability. They were a giant PHP shop, and basically sucked away a bunch of developers that were trying to make their product integrate better with Yelp by like sandboxing it and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But the unfortunate thing is E24 was never really like a first-class citizen in the Yelp infrastructure. It was always kind of this like sequestered, untrusted code base, mostly because it was written in PHP and like had a bunch of bugs. But like E24 was on its own VPN, and like you couldn't really commit to it. Like I could commit to it because I could access their code, but E24 engineers were like sanctioned off from general Yelp code bases. It was a real shitty situation. Like, I think it was like both a relief and like at the same time like why you just sold E24 after we invested all this time into it. But it was also kind of a relief because maintaining it was a bit of a mess. PHP shops say no more. Yeah. But it was a good product for Yelp to have. Like it was a good like first class citizen to the ordering platform part of Yelp. I don't think Yelp has a first class ordering platform or like a first class plugin for that anymore. I think they just work with third parties now, but yeah, it was great for me because I had left the company at that point and didn't really care about the well-being of that stuff, but made my stock price go up, and that was when I sold. I got out. I'm glad I got out because like the stock price of Yelp has been a roller coaster. 5 years. So I'm always sad when I look at 5 years because I had an opportunity to sell at $82 a share, $83 a share, but didn't. And this is right when they sold E24. So this is when I sold my first batch of stocks, was right here. And then this was, they had one good quarter and I sold right there, I think, somewhere around here. But got out of this roller coaster. It's actually kind of funny if you look at the pattern of the stock. It like goes up and then for half the year it's up and then it goes down. Each of these like large swings is an earnings report, and like almost like clockwork, every other earnings report would be good, and so you'd kind of see like these half year chunks that are up and then down and then up and then down. Looks like their last earnings call did not go well, but I don't know. I think investors are kind of frugal, which is pretty funny. Like random things can happen in the stock market that don't actually affect the value of the company that caused the stock to swing wildly, especially in tech. It's just really frustrating. I'm a business major that ended up working as a data analyst. I've done nothing but write Python code for the last year, and I'm wondering if it's possible to jump to being a full-time developer. Can I get a dev job without a CS degree and just experience? Yes, I definitely think you can. Especially if you've worked as like a data analyst. I've actually talked about this a couple times before, and my opinion about school is that it's useful for networking and it's useful for getting like book smart fundamentals about stuff. But I think the best way to learn code and to be like a good programmer is to have experience working on code, like building stuff or working with other developers or talking about code or reading articles and stuff. And like a lot of that stuff, it's really hard to get out of school. That said, like I learned a lot of stuff in school that I would have had trouble learning outside of school, like discrete math and formal logic and number theory and some like general heuristics of sorting algorithms and like all that sort of stuff. Like I don't think like it would have been harder for me to learn it outside of school, mostly because I would not have been exposed to it, never really thought about it. Number theory and software engineering, yeah, like talk about stuff that I know but is useless to most of my day-to-day. Like, oh yeah, what is the algorithmic efficiency of this? I don't give a damn. I'm just gonna call the sorted function and like make this login button appear on the homepage. Like, yeah. It's a lot of, I don't know, a lot of like theoretical education for computer science isn't always that useful, but I don't know. That's my opinion. I definitely think you can get a job without a CS degree. You can't implement quicksort for memory? Trash. Yeah, I can't implement quicksort, sorry. I can maybe implement like really crappy what is it, bubble sort? I could probably implement like merge sort if I thought about it a bit. But probably I do bucket sort maybe. But yeah, no. BOGO sort is the best, yeah. BOGO sort. What is it? Sorting algorithms. Visualize. 15 sorting algorithms in 6 minutes. Oh boy, that's hopefully you're not epileptic because this is pretty crazy. But yeah, this is like a bunch of different sorting algorithms that are on YouTube. Insertion sort, this is one that I could do. But yeah, there's a bunch of different sorting algorithms here. This one's quick sort. They include, I think BOGO sort is at the end. Oh, I could do cocktail sort. Yeah, here's BOGO sort. Just like randomize it and hope that it's done. You learn about the existence of quicksort and a general idea of what it looks like. Yeah, that's true. What would you do as a Java programmer if you've never learned about design patterns? So I have the answer to that. And at least in industry, you learn about design patterns because people will tell you that your code is bad, and then you get better at writing code. Or they don't tell you your code is bad, and then you end up with just like unmaintainable spaghetti. And some of like my first job out of high school was at a enterprise software company, and I get kind of mixed levels of mentorship there. I started in a QA role, so I didn't really have any developer mentors at that point. And so all the code that I wrote was really just like, whatever works, let's fucking make it happen. Some of that code was garbage, but it got the job done. It made the things do the things. It automated myself out of a job, which was great. But it wasn't until I actually got a mentor leader in that internship where they were actually a software developer and could give me guidance about some of the stuff that I was doing. It was then when I realized, like, oh, this is how you would structure things. This is how you would organize, like, oh, put your pure functions over here, put your objects here. This is like a good pattern for setting up immutability. This is when you should make things public and private. Like, this is how you should encapsulate stuff there, and yada yada yada. So that's where I really like got some of that experience. Yeah, I don't know. I think you can learn design patterns without going to school for sure. I was in an interview for a developer we were hiring. Our manager asked them to write bubble sort. No. Yeah, I frequently talk about interviews and how most interviews suck. Especially if they're asking you to do things like bubble sort. My answer would be like, fuck you, bud, I'm gonna Google it. I don't remember how to write bubble sort, and I don't think that impacts my ability as a software engineer. Your IQ is the average of your 4 best friends. Try to make good developer friends and observe their coding style. I think that's kinda true, yeah. God, I thought my IQ is the average of my 4 best friends. Let's see. I guess most of my friends are kind of smart. It'd be fine. Seems good. What if you have no friends? That was my first reading of that. I was like, do I have friends? I think I have friends. I have a couple. Maybe I don't have friends. Rip me. Feedback from a senior engineer is the quickest way to learn. Yeah, that's true. especially if they're good. Of course they're good. That's why they're senior engineers. Divide by 0 now what? Infinite IQ. There you go. But yeah. Peel back a few stack frames. Oh, this is my April Fool's joke. Oh, this is a cool project that I made. So this was one of my first open source projects called Git Code Debt. The idea behind it was to track code metrics in a Git repository over time, and then like build a dashboard that kind of shows you recent trends, and then graph them so you can kind of see their output over time. The idea, well, the reason that I wrote Git Code Debt was to try and track deprecated things inside Yelp main or Yelp's monolith. And we actually use this to write a bunch of custom metrics and then like plot them over time. And the thing that if I had a blog, I would have blogged about it. But the thing that I would say all the time is, oh yeah, I'm doing graph-driven development, where I'm trying to take deprecated patterns and send them down into the right, or that into the right, and then you guys can see that. This is my left, but on the screen it's your right. Anyway, but this was another project that I did. This was my first like try and design a object-based system, and I don't think that I did a particularly good job of it. Because I designed this one. I designed this API and it's not really that great. And I've just never gone back and fixed it. It mostly works, but there's all sorts of these like duplicated APIs that mostly work but aren't exactly perfect. I don't know. As I've written more and more code, I feel less and less like objects are the answer for things, and like inheritance to me feels like a problem if I'm reaching for it. Now don't get me wrong, like inheritance is sometimes useful, but more recently I've been shying away from inheritance as much as possible. But and this project is very inheritance heavy. That's how the metrics work. They're classes, and they inherit their base classes, and but seriously, you learn from your peers a lot. Yeah, that's definitely true. You definitely learn a lot from your peers. I learn stuff all the time at work from my peers, and you're never really done cooking. If you ask them to write a sort, that's not a good indicator of anything, but if they recognize one on paper, that could mean a couple of things. Yeah, that's true. And I think I could implement a sort. It wouldn't be a very good one, but it would be a sort. Lift stuff. Leave that. We will leave that for another day. Can't show you lift code. That's one thing that I've been told I'm not allowed to do. I guess I can show you lift public code, although lift doesn't open source that much stuff. What sort does Python use? I know it's a stable sort. Let's see, Python sort implementation. I don't know if it's specified. Oh, Stack Overflow has a question for it. Closed as a duplicate. What algorithm is the built-in sort using? Code is here, starting with function isLt and proceeding for quite a while. C code. I guess it's timsort given all these things, but I don't see it actually saying that explicitly. Adaptive, stable, natural merge sort, modestly called timsort. Hey, I earned it. It has supernatural performance on many kinds of partially ordered arrays. Oh, Python previously used a thing called sample sort? Oh. Anyway, I guess at least CPython uses timsort,
which is a type of merge sort, yeah. If you declare a variable in a loop in Python, does it optimize or keep redeclaring it onto the stack? I'll actually show you this because you can actually find this out by inspecting the code. So if we did something like for I in range 5 and then x equals 10, something like this. Python 3-i t.py. So there's this disassembly module, with a function called f. And if we, let me open up the code side by side, t.py. Thank you, King Scorpion 64 for following. Every follow counts. So if we open up this code here, we can kind of see how this executes. So the first is kind of the loop code here, which is just this here. So setup loop. I don't know if, let's do this in Python 3.7. I think it's a little, or 3.8. Change this? Yeah, they changed how this worked in 3.8. Yeah. So there's no longer this setup loop stuff. This used to be used to manage the loop frame. Well, it's not actually a frame, but like how the unwinding works in the break statements. But now the break statements have been optimized and handled differently. But anyway, so this range call here is represented by these two lines here, where it loads the global for range and then loads a constant for 5 and then calls the range function. Thank you, Jimbles the Doc, for following. Every follow counts. Jimbles, that's kind of a cool name. But then it grabs an iterator from this range object that gets returned, and then for iter is the kind of implementation of this for loop. And the first part of the for loop is a store fast, which is where it's storing into this I variable here. Then it's going to load this 10 and store it into x, and then jump. This is basically the loop portion of the for loop. And then at the end, there's this implicit return none. So for any function in Python which doesn't return a variable, it's always going to return none. But the question about declaring the variables, variables in Python are function scoped, so they actually get declared only at the function. And we can actually look at that by looking at the code object associated with the function. And there's a bunch of these attributes, but we can look at the CO names attribute. CO names. Wait, no, that's the global names. Is it CO? What is it? CO. No, that's that names. Var names, I think it is. Yeah. So this represents all of the variables that are available inside this function. And there's also this n-locals, which tells you how many slots of local variables that get set up. And so if you think about a function in Python, let me open up Paint, kind of draw this. So if we think about our code object here, so we have we'll use text. Our def-f object, which had this code. When you call this f function, it makes a stack frame here. So this is like the frame of f. And given this n-locals and var names here, it actually allocates a little array here. So these are the frame variables. Shift, vertical line. Pretend like these are the same size. Kind of our locals here. And Python pre-maps that, oops, they're kind of our locals there. And based on this mapping here, Python knows which variable goes into which slot. So this is actually the slot for I, and this is the slot for X. And so as it executes, it assigns into these slots and maintains those just directly in the frame. Let's see. Does anything change with hints yet? No, hints are just, so, I mean, technically something does change, so we can we can show here if we return none here. There's this, what is it called? Annotations. So technically the only thing that changes is this arrow none causes this double under annotations to have stuff here. And if we did like x int, we can see annotations for the arguments as well. But this doesn't get used at runtime at all. These annotations are purely comments for now. Variable memory gets allocated per function before function assembly. Not really. So this memory gets allocated when you call the function. So if you imagine, let's set up some more code here. So let's say we had main, and main called f, and f calls g. And we'll put some variables in those in a second. Thank you, Squire, for following. Every follow counts. So let's say in main we had x equals 1, in f we had y equals 2, and in g we had z equals 3. When you first start this program, you start at kind of the bottom of your stack. This is kind of like your execution layer. And as you call main, you add a frame on top of it. So this is the main frame. Oh, actually, I need to make this code actually get run. And there's actually frames above this main function here. Oops. So some calling code actually calls this, and there's C frames in between these two, but I'm just talking about the Python frames here. And so inside this main frame, you get one variable allocated for x. There's also additional space here, but for other stuff, not super important. And then when main calls f, it builds another frame on top of that. So let's see, further in time here, we get the f frame here, and that builds its local variable, which is y, yeah, y. And then when f calls g, it adds another frame here. Get your third variable, which is your z, or z as my Canadian friends say. Oh, I forgot to put the function name here. So this is kind of like how the call stack works. And then when g returns, this memory gets freed up, so this goes away as that happens. And then as f returns, this frame goes away. And then when main returns, this goes away. That's like your program stack kind of builds and like zigzags over time. A frame is, yeah, you could, well, all of the primitives in Python are objects, and so yeah, a frame in Python is an object. C works kind of the same way. You have a stack that grows as you call a function. It contains some other information here. You can actually inspect frame objects in Python by looking at stack traces and stuff and using sys.getFrame and that sort of thing. But yeah, the frame holds the local variables and some other state about how the execution runtime is working. But that's how that works. But yeah, what if you create an object? So the actual objects here that are assigned to Y are allocated onto a heap, which is separate from your stack. So these are actually just like, there's actually like a big blob of memory on the opposite side of your stack. Let's see, let me make this black. And then I'll say, thank you, Efohan Croft, for following. Every follow counts. And so there's kind of heap memory, which is stored elsewhere. And in Python, all of your objects are heap objects. So there's actually like a let's see, we'll use this rectangle here. So there's actually like a pi integer here, which has the value 1, which pretend like that box actually worked, but whatever. Which this x variable is actually just a pointer that points to
or like holds a reference to this integer object on the heap. And so these stack variables here are really only just like small pointers. I know you know why I asked that memory question. Oh, I see. Yeah. Python is sequential code and it's not compiled. That's actually not true. So Python is actually compiled to a stack-based language. It's still interpreted bytecode on a virtual machine, but there is a compilation step. And so like when you compile something, you end up with this PyC file, which is actually the byte compiled bits of Python. We actually looked at the bytecode earlier when we looked at the disassembly of this function. So like each of these is an opcode which has operands that cause Python to operate on its stack. So behind the scenes, all of the parts of Python are actually a second stack inside of the execution engine. So like setup global, or wait, this one is probably the better one. So let me grab this and explain it in Paint as well. Text box here. Gonna look like crap. Okay, but close enough. We can make this consoles. Oops. So fixed width. And then we'll decrease the font size. Well, I can just make the window bigger. Yeah, so like this is the code for the function f, and this is kind of how Python executes that. Where's my box tool? Box tool. So the first thing that happens is a load global, which loads this range global, and that puts it into the stack as the range variable is here. Then it loads a constant, in this case 5. That's not text. That's not box. That's text. It adds another cell in its execution stack here. That's the value 5. And then what this call function thing does here is it grabs let's see. It grabs these two values, and in this case it's calling the function with one argument. So it pops the first thing off the stack, and that becomes the function arguments. Then it pops the function and calls it. So these get deleted. And then what it does is it stores the result of that function call onto the new stack. So then your stack kind of starts over with a new value here, which is the range object. This is now the range 5 object. And then like I could continue following the function execution, but this is kind of the basics for how Python executes its bytecode. I'm not great at explaining it, but there's this great talk that I saw. Let's see, PyCon 2015, bytecode execution. Let's see if I can find bytecodes and stacks. Yeah, I think this is the one that I watched. No, this is EuroPython. That's definitely not the one that I saw. PyCon US. Is it this one? It sounds like this one. YouTube. What the fuck? My YouTube recommendations are awful because I don't watch anything on my YouTube account, so I just get like complete garbage. What is this? Oh, this one's actually relevant because we just watched those sorting algorithms, but who knows? Oh yeah, this talk is great. So if you want more explanation of how the Python bytecode stuff works, let's see if we can skip ahead to a part where yeah. So see, these are some of the instructions that I was showing earlier over here. She's too quiet to hear. I'll just turn that off. But Allison worked on the coverage module for Python, and so I had to understand like how all of this execution works so that you can trace the code as you watch how it executes. But yeah, here's Allison showing basically the same stuff that I was kind of showing earlier, but these are the exact byte codes of the compiled function. And yeah, here's where she's showing the data stack. And like load the number 3, load the number fact, call the function, so then call this here and then execute further there. But anyway, she explains it better than I do, so if you wanna check out her video, definitely do that. This was a really good talk. I saw this in person, and this was the first time that I kind of understood, like, whoa, this is how all this stuff works. Cool. Hey, what's up, stupid gladiator? I don't mean to call you stupid. That's just your IRC handle or your Twitch handle. Technically, it's IRC, so I'm not wrong. But yeah, this Python support TCO? No, it does not. At least CPython does not support tail call optimization. I've actually been trying to kind of implement it in Python. You can kind of delete frames and muck with frames in the C API, so you could almost implement it, but it doesn't support it naively. And there's an alternative approach that uses stack introspection to do it, but it's a bit more complex than the thing we built here. Yeah, this actually isn't using recursion at all, it's using an object to store state instead. But yeah, you could rewrite the bytecode to support tail call recursion, and there are tools that do that. One's called Numba? Numba translates Python functions to optimize machine code at runtime. Yeah, so I guess this is even further. This takes it out of the Python execution engine and sticks it into like LLVM or whatever. But not exactly vanilla Python, but Python provides hooks to do all this stuff, so you could in theory do it, but it not by default. Am I doing computer architecture? I'm doing whatever people ask in chat right now, because I had no plans for today, and I think I've written like 4 lines of code. I had like a bug fix for something. Yeah, I went to... Oh, it's broken. Dang it. Why are the tests failing? Linux docs. Really? The test failed because I malformed my changelog entry, which is hilariously silly. But anyway, yeah, I haven't really written much code this stream. It's mostly just been answering questions and stuff, which is kind of cool. I have a dumb question. Questions aren't dumb. Just ask your questions, man. I don't judge. You don't say they're dumb questions. They're fine. Recently, I was trying to move to Vim from Visual Studio Code and setting up PyDB for Vim. How do you debug your Python code? I am probably the minority here. I use just the default... Oops, what did I do? I just use the default debugger that ships with Python, which is this module called PDB. It's not great. It is good enough though, and it's the reason I use it is because I don't have to install anything to make it happen. But the way you make PDB work is you just stick this code where you want the debugger to stop, and then you can inspect stuff inside that frame. So we used it earlier when I was looking at, let's see, talks. In this file. Yeah, so we were using it earlier when I, no, not that call either. This call. So you basically put like a PDB statement here. And earlier this was triggered when I did this, and then Control C. Maybe this one? Oh, we'll find out in a sec. But PDB is not a great debugger for Python. There's much better ones. But you can kind of like look at the code that you're running, or look at local variables, or like pretty print local variables, status, things like that. What locals do we have? pp args, for instance. Yeah, so like you can pretty print this list that was about to be called or whatever. But that's what I use to debug Python. It's, I don't know, subpar, but it gets the job done. The reason I use PDB and not other tools is I don't have to install things. And so if I'm ever on someone else's computer, I don't have to worry about like, oh, do you have my debugger of choice installed? It's like, no, I can just use the bare bones tools. Or if I'm on like a staging machine or somewhere where we don't want to install debuggers in production, like I can just use PDB. But yeah, that's mostly how I debug. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. What? PDB is great. Yeah, I mean it's pretty good for what it does. It has a lot of like problems in my mind. Like this is one that really bothers me. Like normally if you want to print variables, so like if I want to print action, I can just type action. I happen to have a variable called args here, but if I type args here, it's going to print the arguments to the function, even though I probably wanted it to print this. And sometimes if I type like something that starts with a C, like config interpreter, I don't know if it'll do it this time. Oh, it did it fine. But sometimes when you like start command or start names with commands, it will run those commands instead of like printing the variable. I don't know, like occasionally I'll have strings that are called just S, and S is step, but I would actually want to print the string instead. I don't know, it has some rough edges. I've heard that PDB++, Python is a better tool for doing this, but again, you have to install it, and like it adds a bunch of like colorings and nice things and whatever. But I don't know. I think I'd rather just use the dumb tools. Freaking Vim has been a nightmare to set up lately. I switched to IntelliJ products, but I'm looking forward to OniVim 2 to be released. I've never heard of OniVim, but sounds cool. Yeah, I used to use IntelliJ products. I really liked. Well, I used to use vanilla IntelliJ. That was before PyCharm was a thing, but I really liked using it. I stopped using it because it was too slow for me, but that's why I use a really, really crappy text editor called Nano, which is embarrassing, but you know, it happens. I still need to make an FAQ and put it in my stream description, but maybe one day. But yeah, I do know how to use Vim. I just don't. Like, I can, oh look, I can exit Vim, woo! But I know like complicated stuff like visual and sorting, and no, I still use the arrow keys like a noob, but whatever. I kind of know enough Vim to get around, like DD to delete stuff and Shift P to paste, you know. It's like basically what I need to get by in Vim. I'm actually teaching my brother to program right now. These are his notes. But I'm intentionally teaching him Vim so that he doesn't get made fun of like I do for using Nano. And so we're both learning Vim together. It's like I think he's almost better at Vim than I am at this point. He may not be as fast as I am because he's still getting used to typing like all of the special characters, which I've had years of experience typing special characters, but I think he's memorizing a lot of the commands, which is pretty good. Hey all, yeah, I'm early, it's great. What's up, Ragey? Oh, Vim is great, okay. But yeah. Can you explain why using an iterator to traverse a list is faster than a for loop? Is it? He plays Pokemon too. Yeah, he plays way more Pokemon than I do. Is using an iterator faster to traverse a list in Python?
Oh, do you mean like using a list comprehension to traverse a list? I'm not sure what you're asking. And I don't know. Let's see. iPhone 3 import TimeIt. I can never remember how TimeIt works. Look at the docs. Is my brother younger or older? He's 2 years younger than I am. TimeIt string to float. A statement and setup. Okay. Is it a statement or is it? How many times is it gonna run that? 1,000,000 times? We don't have time for that. Number equals, I don't know, 1,000. I seem to remember list comprehensions being faster. Oh, I guess not there. I mean, this would be cheating. This is gonna be faster, because it does nothing. I don't know what you mean by showing... Can you, like, show me 2 examples of code? Pew T Wheat of iterator versus for loop. There's a lot of cases I've seen in code benchmarking where they'll use a list comprehension over a for loop because of the way that the list comprehension executes, because it doesn't have to check some stuff or assign some stuff. I forget exactly. But sometimes it can be faster. I mean, clearly not from what I've shown here. Like, this seems to be, the for loop seems to be faster here than the list comprehension. Vim is not that hard to learn, just takes a week for the basics. Yeah, he mostly learned it within like the first day. Like he had the basics to like entering insert mode and getting out of that and doing that pretty well. Learning a lot from watching your stream, some pretty cool stuff. Yeah, thanks man. Python was my first programming language too. It was not my first programming language, and technically it wasn't my brother's. So I used to teach this course at Michigan, EECS-183. EECS183.org, wow, fancy. Is this actually... No, this is not the UMich one. It's some other school. Maybe it is the UMich one. They have 9 projects now? Holy shit. Oh yeah, this is... I might actually be in this photo. Fall 15. I think that was the one that I came back for. Let's see if I can find myself in this photo. This is Mary Lou Dorff, who used to teach the course, who used to be the lecturer for the course. Oh, I remember this. I remember this room. I don't see myself though. Bummer. But yeah, at the end of the class, they used to do this like fair where they would build like custom projects in Python or C++ and like demo them to the class, and it was kind of like a work on whatever you want to work on. But yeah, EECS-183 was Intro to Programming. Wow, they submit on GitHub now. That's so cool. But yeah, when I used to run it, it was a little bit different. The League Ballroom, yep, that's where it got held. But yeah, anyway, I used to teach this course, and my brother took it and basically failed it. He passed because of the curve, which was I was very embarrassed. And that semester, a couple of the other student teachers had their siblings take the course too, so we were all like betting on which set of brothers and sisters was going to do the best, and Up until like the second project, it looked like my brother was kicking ass there. But then I think Eva's sister did the best of any of the siblings, but oh well. my brother almost failed it, so I was pretty embarrassed. But yeah, that was in C++ at the time, so technically his first language was C++, although he remembers like literally 0 of it, which is fine. Yeah, same. Then it went to Java. For work, I'm in Java and JavaScript. Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, my first language was Visual Basic 6, or TI Basic, depending on whether you consider writing crappy programs on calculators as valid programming or not. But yeah, it happens, I guess. One is a collection, the other is an array iteration. Still not. Oh, you're referring to the iterator versus a list. Oh, do you mean like iterating over range versus iterating over a full array that contains all the things? I'm still like, show me some code examples. You can post links in chat. I don't filter links, so if you want to post like paste bins, here's a good link to post paste bins. If you can show me like code examples, then I can explain. But I still don't know what you mean. And then you stepped in and submitted 1,000+ commits. Only 1,000? Many more than 1,000. Oh, maybe you mean X range versus range? Yeah, I could. Yeah, that's something that's different. It's not really relevant in Python 3 anymore, but in Python 2 it's a difference. So like range is a function which returns a tuple, or oh, I guess it returns a list. I thought it was a tuple, but I was wrong. And so like iterating over this list object allocates a bunch of memory and like requires a bunch of state to be in memory, and that overhead of state takes a bunch of extra time. Whereas xrange in Python 2 produces an xrange object which you can't see because it's implemented in C. Python, let's see, GitHub, Python. But I can basically implement my own xrange. Let's do that. My xrange. So it has 3 arguments. So it'd be, we can do star args, and if len args equals 1, args equals 0. If len args, I guess. Self.start, self.end, self.step equals that. If the number of args is 2, so I need it to be an iterable, and the easiest way to do that is just to return self, and then you implement the next function, which I guess instead of self.start, we can replace that with self.nextNum. How would you do this? Yeah, if self.nextNum is greater than self.end,
raise stop iteration. So this tells it to stop the for loop. Otherwise, the return value equals self dot next num and self dot next num plus equals self dot step. And return ret. Let's just do 5. I think this will work. Where is this code? It's in talks for some reason. Yeah, so, oh, that's wrong. Greater than or equal to the end, it should raise stop iteration. So this should do 0 through 4. Yeah. This is a basic implementation of a range. Let's see if we did like 2 to 5. Yeah, so it starts at 2, stops before 5, and you can change the step as well. So say we did 2 to 10, and we just wanted the even numbers. We'll do 2, 4, 6, 8. One thing that my thing doesn't support is negative numbers. So if self.step is greater than 0, and this, if self.step is less than 0 and self.num is less than or equal to self.n, so you can do backwards as well. If we did from 10 to 2 stepping negatively, which should still work. Yeah, so we see that working too. Oh, another thing, we have to check some error cases here. Insert self dot next int. We gotta do this for all 3 of the values just to make sure that they're integers. Technically, you can't really do a range without them. And we have to assert that self.step is positive or is non-zero. And I think that implements it. But the actual like explanation here is xrange, or range in Python 3, doesn't actually build out a whole array. It just has these 3 state variables, and that's how it does its work. So hopefully that answers that. But here's like kind of the basics of how iterators work in Python. Not Toxic Ribbon says, okay, I gotta know how many words per minute you type. I thought I typed fast, but it seems like you type stupid fast. So I actually did a speed test on stream a couple streams ago. And it was right around 80 words per minute, although that's lower than I've been tested before. So like in high school I was typing at like 110, although I think the words I was typing in high school made more sense, and like I was typing sentences instead of just like rapid fire random words, which is what I did on stream. And like typing sentences is a little bit more natural for me because like I would write them as if I was saying them, and like I can almost type at the same speed that I would like if I talk at a normal cadence, I can type at about that speed and think it about that speed. But the random words I could only type like 80 words per minute, which is pretty good. But yeah, I do type pretty fast. I think the thing that I've gotten a lot better at typing is like symbols and stuff, because with programming you spend a lot of time typing, you know, single quotes and parentheses and brackets and tabs and underscores and like all these other things, and I think those are a little bit different there. You can try typeracer.com for sentences. Cool. Awesome. Is instance. I never used that on anything other than class objects, and that was in C++. Yeah, these are basically just assertions. Like, I think in CPython these are implemented using, I guess we can just try. Like, if we did range 1.5, that should give an error. Yeah, so it gives a type error there. And so like these probably wouldn't be assertion errors. It would be like if is instance blah blah blah, or if not, then raise type error, etc. But I was too lazy to write that out. But let's see if we can actually find the range object in CPython. That should be right here. Start, stop, step, and what does length do?
Stored objects whose length is greater than pi s size t max. Oh, I see. So the length, I guess there's one part of my function that I didn't implement. They compute length up front. Whereas I guess I could dynamically compute it. Let's see. It'd be absolute value of self dot end minus self dot. Oh, I need to keep track of start. Dang it. Oh well. Pretend I had a self dot start and then integer divided by self dot step. Although the standard library one computes the self ramp, but yeah, we're gonna ignore that. Make range object. Range new. So this is kind of the. Oh wait, what happens if you make a range object with no arguments? Okay, you need an argument. That's what I thought. But this is kind of the logic that I implemented in my if statement. So this if statement right here, like if the size is less than or equal to 1, that's this logic right here. And so it's basically saying like the start is 0 and the step is 1. And if it doesn't have a stop. Wait, what is this? Oh, stop is the yeah. Is that an error? Range 0? No, it works. Huh. Oh, I see. If this is null, return null. So if there's an index error here, then it raises an exception. I see what's happening here. I have to remember that the way Python handles exceptions in the C code is by returning null and setting the global exception flag. And this is kind of the second case here, where there's 2 or 3 arguments. But it looks like... Oh, how do I make this work? I don't know, I'd have to read this. I'd have to read the docs for this. I'm not gonna try and understand what this one does. But basically it's the same, like the same or similar code to what I wrote here. But yeah, here's a crappy implementation of range. Theirs is going to be much faster because it's implemented in C, and mine's in pure Python, and like pure Python tends to be slower than the C code because it has a bunch of overhead for method calls and other stuff like that. Whereas in C, you can just like directly call. Why does Python have double underscore before and after each function? So these are what's called magic methods. And the best explanation that I have for them is they're functions that the Python runtime will call directly. So the way this for loop is actually implemented is something that looks like this. Let's see, object or like temp equals my x range. Let's just do x range 10 or x range 5 for instance, and then temp iter equals iter my x range, or iter temp, I guess. So that's where this double under iter is coming into place. This built-in iter function is calling this object hook. Also, this called the init object hook, which is like the object setup. And then the way this for loop works, so this for loop is actually just syntax sugar for something that looks like this. While true, try I equals next temp iter, except stop iteration break, and then otherwise run the body here, print I. So this is essentially what for loop looks like in Python. So this is this translated into code. For I in my x range 5 print I. Oops. So this is kind of the magical loop code, and so that's where this double under next comes into play. That gets called at each loop iteration. And if we run this, I can show you that it still works the same way. Assuming I don't have a syntax error. Oh, Python then I'm free. Yeah. But yeah, this is essentially that for loop, but written using the low-level stuff that Python is doing behind the scenes. Oh yeah, so their method's called by the interpreter, I think. Yes, you're exactly right, Mindfulbox. So is print all the elements in a collection faster than printing all the elements in an array? It depends if that collection is implemented as like a sparse collection or like a range object, like I've done here. So like printing things in my range object should be faster than printing in an array. And we can actually demonstrate that. So we're just gonna loop through 90,000 objects and do nothing. After this time. And then we'll show how much time that took. So print. Thank you, triple equals, for following. Nice, it's a good name. After minus before seconds. This is my X range. So this is some like very crappy benchmarks. Or in range. Oh wait, we want to make like a list object and to demonstrate this. We'll use the same number in both. 90,000. Well, it doesn't matter. We're getting rid of this. And hopefully mine will beat out the list. It might not, because the list is also implemented in C, so there's a unfair advantage there. But it potentially is faster. Nope, mine's slower. Yeah, not terribly surprising there. List is like highly optimized, but if we change this instead to range, we can see the difference here. So when it's range, wait, even the range is slower? That doesn't sound right. It should be iterating over exactly. What? Oh, there, now it's faster. Okay, maybe it was just like an artifact of caching or whatever. Hey, stupid gladiator, thank you for following. I can talk, right? Yeah, so this is what I expected to see, that the range is faster than list of range. I don't know what happened here. This one makes no sense to me, but whatever. Bigger number equals worse in this case. But the reason that my X range was slow is because this is all pure Python code, which is slower. I guess if we ran it with PyPy, it could show that it's faster. PyPy 3 can't use starred expression. Oh, I don't have PyPy 3.6. I can download that without ruining my stream now. Yay. Yay, high bandwidth. Linux x86 64. Yeah. Pretty fast too. What do you mean I can't use a starred expression there? Does PyPy not support this yet? I'll be fine. Make it compatible. Yeah, so... Oh wait, that's still range, isn't it? Oh, I still don't beat the benchmark. I guess I would have to do this several times. Because PyPy is a JIT compiler, so it gets faster every time you run it. Which actually I think it's just kind of optimized this out to returning 0, but it's fine. I guess we can show it returning 0 very, very quickly. Return before minus after. Just gonna call these a bunch of times to make them get jitted so they go fast. And then we can run the benchmarks down here. What are you mad about? Oh, we can just delete this code now. So in theory, what? Oh. That's why it's negative. It's still not faster. Oh, whatever. Anyway. I wasn't able to demonstrate what I was talking about. Probably because it's optimizing this in some way, but in theory, this could be faster if it got boiled down to essentially C code, but clearly not happening here. But that's fine. The for each loop is a treacherous loop. Use the for each loop is gonna, in some cases, will commit a high performance cost penalty. Oh, in VB? Huh. Did not know that. Why is that? Four versus four each. Why? Why though? There's no reason for it to be slower. It's literally doing the same work. This seems like bad advice. Like, what if the runtime just changed to make this efficient? Like it seems to me like the fact that for each is slower on VBA arrays is a bug, and not something to necessarily draw conclusions about. Also, it probably matters not at all. But it's interesting. I didn't know that there's such a difference in performance for VBA there. How do you improve your typing speed? I think I hit the block at 60. I don't know. The last time I like trained on typing was I think in like middle school. And we had like, oh, it was awful. We had typing class. We would go into the computer labs every day and like everyone would sit at keyboards and type out these inane sentences over and over and over, and it was awful. But my friend and I realized that we could just like speedrun the entire program, and then once we were done with it, we just played games. Because screw typing class. That class sucked.
But I think we got better because we were competitive and like trying to get faster and faster to get done with the class. But the way I've gotten better with programming and typing fast with code is just lots and lots of practice, and a lot of it is muscle memory at this point. Like I don't necessarily think about what keys I'm gonna press to do specific actions. I'm just like in my head like, oh, I want to go to the end of the line, so I'll Control E, or go to the beginning of the line, Control A, and like scroll up and down and all that stuff. And like I don't really think about it after a while. I'm sure I definitely think about it when I first was doing stuff like, oh, like I want Control G to get to the help and X to close and like all those sorts of things. And like I definitely thought about it a lot before I used the key combos a lot. But I think with practice it just gets better and better. I think he's been doing everything with keywords instead of using a lot of GUIs and IDEs. I used to use IDEs all the time. I really liked Visual Studio. And why aren't you using Vim, you filthy ape? Because I'm a noob. That's why. I do know how to use Vim. I can use Vim. Hey, look, I'm using Vim. Are you happy now? Look, I can quit even. Look, I quit Vim. Woohoo. But I'm using the arrow keys. Don't you feel bad? Are you so mad at me because I'm using the arrow keys? Look at me. What is this, Ninja Stream? Yeah. Do they teach you touch typing? Yes, they did teach us touch typing, although I cheat at touch typing. I'm not a very good touch typer. Mostly because like I use more keys with my index fingers than I should, and particularly my left index finger covers like if you're on a QWERTY keyboard, it's supposed to be like the right or left index key finger. Left index is supposed to do T, G, V, but I also do like Y, H, and B with that finger, and then like don't do as much with my right hand, which is kind of weird because I'm right hand dominant, but like yeah. Oh, Sarcastic Dante, I will recognize these characters one day. Today is not yet that day though. I'm pretty sure this is good or good morning. Okay. Ohio. Yes. Left index is RFVTGB. Yeah, those are the ones that it should be, but for me I go over another row and do those as well. But yeah. Holy goodness, I have so many tabs open. What's up? I3 Runo Corb, thank you for following. Every follow counts. Or is it Lee? Is it Iruno Corb? I don't know. Anyway, thanks for the follow. Not that stupid after all. Talking about stupid gladiator in chat. But yeah, this performance thing about Visual Basic for loops seems kind of weird to me. I think it's want to learn more about the go-to statement? No, do not learn more about the go-to statement. I think it's really weird that that these have different performance characteristics. Like I would expect them to be identical, but I don't know. And I imagine Microsoft is not trying to drastically improve the performance of VBA because it's really only used as like scripting for Office. I think actually, let's see, I think MS Office you can write Python now, or at least this is what I was remembering. Microsoft is considering adding Python as one of the official Excel scripting languages. When was this article? 2017. I don't know if it's happened, but it would have been cool. I don't know if they actually did it though, but this is what I was thinking of. What even? Yeah, if you want to use the COM API. Ugh. LibreOffice you can, yep. Yep. LibreOffice is the like oh no, I downloaded someone. I deserved it. Like, why do I have nine more points on Stack Overflow? Yeah. Using Excel to make backend code. You say that. The current running joke for my team at Lyft is that Google Sheets is the best backend database of all time. Because it's multi-data center, it has consistency guarantees, it's multi-tenant, and the hosting cost is essentially zero because someone else is paying for it, not me. And the reason this joke started is we have this service at Lyft called Sheets, which does like data collection for like a bunch of like metric-y stuff for kind of like infra services, and it stores them in a Google Sheet. Let's see, what's one of them I can show? I'll probably show. Let me find the link for it. Refactorator spreadsheet. So we have this distributed refactorating tool, and it uses Sheets as its data store. Yeah, sure. Here's one that I can show you. Yeah. So hopefully it isn't problematic, but here's a Google Sheet. Ah, dang it, I have to log in. Alright, I'll drag it from my Firefox window. Yeah, here's a Google Sheet tracking the repos that had merged changes for, in this case, oh, you can see the footer. Break the window so you can see the footer. This was the enable pre-commit Flake 8 fixer, where I was basically adding Flake 8 linting to every Python repository at Lyft. And so this is a spreadsheet which has the like whether they got merged, and if they got merged, did they get released to development, and whether they got released to production. But anyway, we use Sheets as a database. It kind of works. But and this is all done through a Google API. In fact, we had to ask Google to bump our API limit higher because we ran out of API requests to Google Sheets, which it's pretty funny. But yeah, but our current running joke is that Sheets is a high performance database, or like highly scaling database. Adam Fighter 10101 asks, are you familiar with C types? I'm trying to make a union that contains a struct and a char. Oh goodness. I've used a little bit of C types. Let's see, C types union. How are unions with Python? Structures and unions. Structures and unions must derive from the structure and union base classes. Oh, this is in Python 2 docs. This is Python 3 docs. That's how you do a structure. Where's the union? Do they have an example of a union? Oh, here's a union. Oh, I see. So you just define each union as a different field with the type here. Seems kind of straightforward. I've never actually worked with unions in C types, so I don't. The stuff I did with C types was very, very basic, and I'm not gonna lie, a lot of it was just like copy and paste C types code from Stack Overflow because, yeah. Reiji says such HA, yeah. Google Sheets has great availability. It's so good. I do the same for PLC exports. I just use certain columns as primary and foreign keys to connect Sheets. Yeah, Sheets also has a querying API, so you can write SQL against it. Because it's definitely a data store. Oh yeah, screw MongoDB and DynamoDB. We're gonna move everything to Google Sheets. It's relational even. But that said, it's actually not a terrible data store if you don't want to like actually set up some sort of data store. I'm not suggesting that you should ever write an application that uses Sheets as a backend, but it works pretty well for just like dumping static data periodically. I have a bunch of sheets that I use for. I mean, they're manually curated databases, but like here's my sheet for my running for this year, which I've been pretty slacking on. I was injured in this period, and like my knee was. Well, I mean, I was still doing stuff, but I was not running because it was hurting my. I did 2 runs at the beginning of the year, and after this run, my knee was like, "You should take a break." So I took a break from running. But this is my spreadsheet for running. Apparently, I averaged 2.5 miles on Saturdays, despite all of these zeros. But I've been getting better at it recently. I have to fill in today's 0. Although I did like 12 miles. Oh goodness, what is going on? Oh, I'm read only. Okay, that's fine. And well, if you look at 2018, my numbers are a little bit better. This is when I was training for a marathon, so I had a planned schedule for running, and so you can see like my numbers are a bit higher here. Like I was doing like 20 to 30 miles a week. This is when I started slipping. So this is when I ran my half marathon. This is when I first injured my knee, and then after that, like, took some time off, and like it got way worse here. This is where I basically just like stopped running because my knee was hurting too much. How do I track the mileage here? Super like Stone Age tracking. Like I figure out the starting point, the ending point. I plot it on Google Maps. I don't really like installing apps on my phone, so I'm a bit of a curmudgeon in that department. So I mostly just figure out the distance by hand, or like I have specific routes that I always run and know the distance for those. Although when I did my half marathon, I actually used an app to figure out like my speed and checkpoints and distance and stuff. I used Strava for that. But I was actually really proud of my half marathon time. So like throughout training here, I did a half marathon before this weekend. Where was it? Where was my training half? It would be in this column. Oh yeah, this day. So I did a training half the week before, and my time for that half marathon was 2 hours and 10 minutes. And I was gonna be real sad if that was my half marathon time, because my all the pacing that I had done up here to like try and compute how fast I could have run a half marathon was having me come in at right around like 2 hours 1 minute, or like 2 hours and 30 seconds or so, and like oh, I can push it a little bit and I can make 2 hours. But I actually did the half marathon in 1 hour 49 minutes and 55 seconds, which is right around like an 8 minute 10 pace or something like that. But I like completely smashed my 2 hour goal. My half marathon was sort of broken. The organizers were not very well organized, and so the half marathon turnaround point was at 7.1 miles when it should have been at what, like 6.55 or whatever. And so that the half marathon distance was actually 14.2 miles. And I even did that 14.2 in under 2 hours, and so I was very proud of that. But I also like over extenuated myself, and that's how I injured my knee. Oh, I have another spreadsheet to show you guys too. This one is a little bit more involved. Oh, didn't mean to open that in a new window. Wait, what happened? Oh, I didn't copy the URL. Copy. Here we go. I have Fitbit, but their API access is a little tedious.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the fitness apps make it pretty hard to manage your own data and stuff. So this is my shiny Pokemon spreadsheet. I've captured every possible shiny Pokemon that you can in the Pokemon games, and used this spreadsheet to track all of that. So like, see my 100% here. And if you don't know what a shiny Pokemon is, let's see, shiny Pokemon Bulbapedia. They are basically Pokemon that have a different color than the standard coloring. So like, the most popular one that people know about is the red Gyarados. So Gyarados is typically blue, but shiny Gyarados is red. And their encounter rate tends to be really, really low. So in like the original games, it was 1 in 8,192, which is exceedingly low. But in the newer games, it improved to 1 in 4,096, and there's other ways to increase the chances. But anyway, I've caught way too many shiny Pokemon, somewhere around like 600. And this is my spreadsheet that tracks them. There are some that I haven't caught, basically because they haven't been released yet. This one got released, but I don't have it yet. My brother has it. He has to trade it to me. This one was from an event for battling in a tournament, but I didn't battle in the tournament because I forgot. Anyway, that's another one of my spreadsheets. Oh, I also have one. I have a biking spreadsheet. Where is that one? Sheets. Bike machine. I haven't edited this one in years. So I stopped keeping track of it like this. But I bought a bike machine in early 2017 and then tracked how many miles that I rode. Miles. Fake miles. They're bike machine miles. They actually correlate pretty well to real miles, but kept track of them in a spreadsheet, and so this is that spreadsheet. I used to do like an insane amount of biking, like close to 100 miles on a weekend and like 200 bike machine miles per week. I think my max week, yeah, I did 1 week that was 302 bike machine miles, which was just like crazy town. But my goal was to do like 100 a week, and my goal for this year before I stopped, and this is when I switched to trying to run, trying to get trained for that half marathon. But my goal that year was to do 5,200 miles, basically 100 miles a week. That I met that goal in August. Year before, I barely missed doing 5,200 miles, and that was because I took like big chunks of time off in the middle. Also, I was much less disciplined and like only 150 miles a week instead of like 200 is what I was averaging before. Anyway, that's my other spreadsheet. Do I have a Peloton? No, I don't. I have a $150 Amazon purchased exercise bike. I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars on a bike. This is an example, and maybe I can hack the Python class. Any idea how to do that? Ooh. I want to change this to this. Oh, meta header? Is this supposed to be your union? Shouldn't this be a union and not a, Yeah, the Peloton is so expensive. For essentially like an iPad and a bicycle. Like, people pay for it, like, more power to them, but I don't need an expensive exercise bike to work out. I'm completely okay with my purchase. I can actually show you. What, do I have photos of it somewhere? You can probably see it in my like computer build. See if we can find that. We don't need this anymore. Oh, I can show you my Lyft IPO photos too. Those are pretty good. Let me find my computer build first. Let's see, are there anywhere we can see my bike machine? Oh yeah, kind of, in this one. This is my bike machine.
it's pretty jank. Although the flywheel is nice. It's weighted, so it kind of feels like you're riding a normal bicycle, but it's really not. This is my living room. But yeah, let me show you the photos that some people took during the Lyft IPO. We basically had like a day-long party at the Lyft office, and it was pretty awesome. This is a sign that says life is better when you share the ride, but share the ride only shows up when there's like 2 buttons on the wall and you're supposed to have 2 people press them. We'll actually see a funny photo of that in a minute, but when you press them it lights up, and so it's kind of like this, oh yeah, you're working together and blah blah blah, ride sharing, yay. But there's me. These are people I work with. We had lots and lots of mimosas. This is actually like one of the best photos people have taken of me. I really like this photo. But this is another photo where we're posing in front of a Lyft sign that was there that day. This is at like 6. This is at like, I don't know, like 7 in the morning, because the opening bell sounds at 9 a.m. Eastern, and so we were up at like 6 in the morning. But we're all pretty inebriated for like 7 in the morning here, which is great. This is most of my team, and then he's not on my team, but these people are my team. This is my manager. Wait, why isn't the arrow key working? Is that the end? Oh, are they not ordered? They're not ordered. Great. So this is the picture where I was like, screw having friends. I'm just gonna press both of the buttons myself and light up the sign without it. You can kind of see the words better here, but like I'm like very much stretching to press both of the buttons. This is us in kind of Lyft's all hand space right before the IPO announcement stuff happened. This is very on brand for me, carrying 2 drinks at once. And this is Mike, he works on my team. But this is a funny photo of me. This is Anish, he works on my team. This is a photo in front of the Lyft sign. Here's another photo in front of the Lyft sign. Oh, and this is a screenshot of GitHub. But anyway, those are photos from the Lyft IPO. But yeah, back to this question. I think what you want here is a union and not a structure. Unless these are these like, oh, these are bytes or bits, I guess. Let's see, bit field C types. I think that's what you're doing, right, Atom Fighter 10101? You actually want a bit field? Creating C-types compatible implementations of registers made up of bit fields. Yeah, so you might want to check out this project, which seems to do what you want, maybe? Bit field objects are derived from ctypes.union. Because of this derivation, these classes can be stacked into C-type structures, which I think is exactly what you want, right? So hopefully that helps you out. Not very many stars on GitHub, so I don't know if it actually works or not, but the docs seem legit. It was committed a year ago, so hopefully it's not too out of date. Let's see what it supports. Seems to support Python 3, so should be good to go. Hopefully that works for you. I already clicked on that. Yeah, no problem. Happy to help. Hopefully it works. No promises. I've never used it before. But yeah. What was I doing? Actually, it's getting pretty late. So I'll probably be signing off pretty soon. Thank you, D3 Crypto, for following. Every follow counts. But yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna do for today. So I wrote almost no code, which is great. I wrote this. Oh, let me fix that pull request. Let me fix the markdown in there. It's kind of embarrassing that my one mistake on my PR was, well, one mistake. I don't want to say that the rest of it was perfect. So I'm pretty sure this is not valid for whatever. When using Control-C during a virtual env. During virtual env creation. Yeah. I guess I can run the docs task locally to validate that it works. And that'll finish off that PR, and that'll be a good place to stop for tonight. Oh, that's not even the pull request. This is the pull request. So, good job me. I wrote a total of 1. Actually, let's put it in white space mode. Oh, cool trick on GitHub. If you do $W = 1, that makes the diff ignore white space, so then it only shows the like non-indentation lines change. So realistically, I wrote 4 lines of code on this stream. 3.5 hours, 4 lines of code. GG me, I guess. I tried, at least. I guess I wrote tests. Kind of counts. Like 1 to 86 to 101, 15. So 20 lines of code. No, I promise I usually write more code than that. But hey, I answered a bunch of questions. That's the important part. Cool, so docs succeeds now. That library is perfect. It's just 2 scripts in total, but I can learn from it. Awesome, sounds good. But yeah, I'll do my little my wind down spiel right now. So if you missed any part of the stream, you can catch the replay of the stream on YouTube, and that's youtube.com/AnthonyWritesCode. Where I upload all previous videos, and usually the day after they'll show up here. I don't edit them because editing is a bunch of work. There's other content on the channel as well, but I don't know, most of it's just stream replays nowadays because I don't have time to make novel content. But some days I'll get back into building novel content, and then there'll be all stuff there. If you liked what you saw on the stream, want to catch it later, follow the Twitch stream. You can click the follow button. I usually announce the streams that I'm going to do on Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's twitter.com/codewithanthony. Unfortunately, that one doesn't match my Twitch handle because I have really great brand synergy. I think it was actually because the handle that I wanted was taken. But whatever. And what else? What was I going to say? I was definitely going to say something, but I totally forgot. Shoot. Oh yeah, I need to find somebody to raid. Oh wait, stream schedule. I usually stream on Saturdays at 1 p.m. Pacific time, and sometimes on weekdays at 6 p.m. like today's stream. So if you want to catch the scheduled streams, that's the times to look out for. But that's all I've got. Let me find somebody on Twitch to raid. So we have a significant number of viewers right now, so we might as well put that to good use. Let's see, we'll look in the programming department. Hopefully someone else is. Let's see, are any of my friends streaming? No. Bummer. Okay, so let's find someone else. Linux, learning Vim and C++ socket programming. That sounds interesting. Make sure that they're actually talking.
Yeah, so...
Okay, they're talking. Cool, we're gonna raid this guy. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and say hi to Quellis for us. Vim, oh no, yeah. Tell him to use Nano.